Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, and welcome to DC Fans United. So today I've got three guests instead of the usual one or two, so it's pretty exciting. It's the most we've had. And we have two returning guests. You probably remember number one, Marmaduke fan.
Yo, thanks for having me on, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always awesome to have you on. And we have Larry King once again.
Thank you for having me again. It's like you can't get enough of me.
Absolutely.
I understand.
A live stream wouldn't be a live stream without Larry. And then we also have brand new guest, David DMI there. He actually, you own a comic book shop, right?
Yep, that's it. That's right.
That's awesome.
I own a comic book shop in Rochester, New York.
That's cool. I mean, you can give it a shout out if you want, or if not, that's fine too.
It's called First Print Comics in Rochester, New York.
That's awesome. That's a really cool name for a shop, actually. I like that.
Thank you.
First Print. The one I go to, just because it's closest to where I live, but it's called Splash Page. I thought that was a pretty cool name for a shop too.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah,
mine's Memory Lane. They're the two brothers bought it from a guy that got out of the business, and Memory Lane. I like Memory Lane. I used to go one called Heroes something. It was way too long of a title. I can't even remember it now. It's Heroes something, but.
Yeah, there's a lot to the name of a shop. Like First Prints, that's a really good name. Something a person will see as really comic book related, but short too. Kind of like, oh yeah, these guys are hip to the comics.
Yeah, so like we did one ST instead of spelling out the name first because we wanted to be the first in the phone book, but realizing that they don't go by numbers. First in the letters, they literally just put us under F anyway, so that sucked.
Well, you had to take the F that time, didn't you?
Yeah,
take the L.
exactly.
that was a good idea, though. I mean, that's marketing.
Well, and also you saved on signage too, because you only got to put one ST instead of FIRST.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like Return of the Jedi was originally going to be Revenge of the Jedi, but they realized they could save so much money by cutting two letters in the posters. No, I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that before.
It's possible.
I believe
They could have
it.
saved a lot of money not making the last movie.
Oh man, I wish.
Sorry.
Are we talking about Solo or The Last Jedi?
Last Jedi.
Yeah. Oh man.
Nobody even watched Solo.
Yeah, I haven't seen Solo yet.
I
I'm not
haven't
spending
either.
money.
That's the problem. Is it didn't make any money. Like it lost money for sure.
My older brother used to recommend the old Han Solo Star Wars books to me, and he would actually my older brother was kind of a cool nerd, so he would act out the scenes for me. And so I've never read them myself, but now that Han Solo's kind of got stunk in the box office sales, I'm thinking about going back and reading some of the old novels that used to be part of the expanded universe before they decided that was not canon.
Yeah, right.
Stupidest move ever. Stupidest move ever.
The EU stuff, Disney threw that out. Although they're picking and choosing what they want and stealing it, though. But anyways, enough about Star Wars. So we'll get around to talking about comic book boycotts, since that is the topic. But I think the juicy thing everyone's thinking about right now is this whole debacle with Batman number 50, right? And this wedding and everything.
Yeah.
So DC really dropped the ball on that one. I don't know what they were thinking. They were going to maybe gin up more sales by having some stuff in the New York Times. I mean, that it could have worked if it hadn't had so many spoilers, right?
I don't understand I don't understand it at all. This has happened a couple of times with events, like spoiling like the return of Hulk in one of them, or the death of Hulk, I think it was actually, in like Civil War, and they had spoiled some other things. I think even like X-Men Gold was spoiled.
But Death of Captain America as well. They did that.
I mean that's we're talking what, like over 10 years ago now.
Yeah, 10 years. Well, I mean it's kind of like a history of it, with the and also the reveal the Batwoman was a lesbian. I remember they did that one.
Yeah.
DC, when I was DC, so.
But I don't understand the drumming up sales because, like, as a comic book shop owner, I placed my order for this book 2 months ago. Final order cutoff was 3 weeks ago, so they give you a chance to adjust your orders 3 weeks before the book comes out. So, like, say that, like, anything after final order cutoff that changes. So, say, like, the writer and the artist change. So then you could be like, whoa, 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 whoa. This isn't Tom King and whoever the artist is. This is going to be a fill-in writer. I'm going to adjust my order and take it down, you know, or whatever. Yeah. So this has all happened. They already have my money. You know, when you order comics from the comic book store, I pay everything in the store that comes in. I get my shipment on Tuesday. Everything that's out on Wednesday is already bought and paid for. I don't get they don't get money from me once I sell it in the store. It's already paid for. So I don't understand. Like, what are you going to do? Like, am I going to go and sell out so fast that I'm going to be placing reorders for it? I'm pretty sure they already hit their print run. So I don't understand the spoiling of it at all. And it's going to hurt these stores that did exclusive covers. I mean, you have to spend a lot of money. You got to buy like 3,000 copies to do an store exclusive. Wow. So you're buying 3,000 copies to do a store exclusive. I don't know, this might have changed, but I think last time I checked, that's what it was. And now you're going to have, like, say you're having Batman and Catwoman getting married on the cover. Why would you want that book? They're not getting married in the book.
Yeah, it's totally misleading. And just as a reader, I mean, aside from it being a spoiler, if I had, you know, gotten the issue and read it and found out they didn't get married, that would have been just terribly disappointing anyway, you know? So even if it hadn't gotten leaked, just what Tom King decided to do with the story is really disappointing, especially when you consider it's not even a big deal, like Batman and Catwoman getting married. I mean, okay, that's really taking a risk there, DC. They've already been married a couple times before in continuity, you know, in old continuity. So it's like, just give the fans what they want, you know.
It's a really stupid idea. I honestly think it's just, when he announced it, I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And then a lot of it, people, but you know, they doing all the tie-ins, so they, oh well.
I think that some of the main comic book companies might see the old press, like the New York Times, as the key to their success. Like, if we could just get the New York Times to have lists of the best graphic novels, then the New York Times will bring comic books into, I don't know, like high society culture and make it chic for, you know, wealthy people in Manhattan or whatever the rich part of New York is. But the delivering on your promises, like Batman actually getting married to Catwoman, would actually be more interesting to a lot of people than the fake out, oh, what you thought was going to happen, it didn't happen in this issue. Like, literally, that's just what happened with Kitty Pryde and Colossus. So this is the second kind of head fake on a big wedding event so far, one from each main company.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if you went through with the wedding, not only would I have my customers coming in on 4th of July that I'm open for this book, I would have those customers coming in, but then I'd have people that read articles about it, or they said, oh, I heard this is going to be the 50th issue of Batman and he's getting married to Catwoman. I want to get that issue. And I'd have those just like maybe casual readers or people that were thinking about coming back to reading, or people that just kind of watched the movie and said, oh, that's interesting, Batman and Catwoman are getting married. They would have came in and bought that. But if they're not going to get married, they're not going to come in.
And I kind of see the comic book shop owner as the main seller of these books now. Like, I don't think I've had very few interactions with professionals online where they convinced me to buy a book I wasn't considering buying. But I have had my local comic book shop owner loan me copies of his books, trying to convince me to try out Valiant comics or try out some series he likes that I'd never heard of before. So there's this kind of, I don't know, like foot in the door atmosphere to the comic book shop, where the comic book shop owner's knowledge is what the newbie needs just to kind of avoid garbage and find something worth reading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I honestly think this right here is going to not only hurt the shops, it's going to hurt DC, which it should, because they should take this lesson. Somebody should be fired for this, I'd say, because whoever in editorial said this was a good idea to greenlight multiple tie-ins that served nothing, that were lies, led to nothing but lies. It's going to hurt Joelle Jones and her Catwoman book, because who's going to want to, like you're thinking, oh, wow, a Catwoman book, like, oh, it's tied in with this mess. There's probably going to be some ramifications. Books have already been ordered for that. Is the final order cutoff already come and gone for Catwoman, or is it?
Catwoman comes out the same day as Batman 50.
Okay, so yeah, so it's kind of it's tied to that stinker. Yeah. It's unfortunately, but you are by doing this, by this event coming and going, or about to come and go, and just not only disappoint people, lying to people that bought into it. Like, people want to believe, give them a chance to believe in something, and then this just comes and goes, and wow, like any other events, any other like hype, what's the point of having hype if they're going to just lie to you like this? Yeah. So it's going to bite them in the ass for many years. Like, DC, as of late in the past, say 6 weeks to like say 2-3 months, has been just stinking it up left and right, and this is just like more nails in the coffin of, hey, at least DC isn't as bad as Marvel. It's getting there. It's getting there, and it's hurting. It's going to hurt shops, and it's going to hurt the creators that are involved in these books, and the customer base is already like. The comic industry isn't healthy, but it doesn't have to be this way. You could be much better, but hey, look what we got. Like, we got some editor saying, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's greenlight a an event series that will culminate in a non-wedding.
And hype it up.
If they'd have said wedding of Batman, Catwoman, and then at the end of it, it's like really the wedding of Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon or something, like kind of like a swerve like that. Like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen. Kind of like, hey, let's go get hitched, and they get hitched. Like that right there, I could see that. It's like, what, that would surprise people. You come for one thing, you get something else, and it may not be as satisfying as that first thing, but has interesting connotations. But of course, that ain't going to happen. We got what we got, because thanks to the New York Times and a press release.
It's like, at least give us something, They were running ads for, I don't even know how long, you're invited to the wedding in like every comic, every DC comic. So it's just, I don't know. It's the same thing with The Last Jedi. There's this trend now where they want to take what you expect to happen and then give you the opposite, and then be surprised when you don't like it. Things that have worked for 70 plus years, maybe just stick with that. People like heroes, people like wholesome marriages and, weddings and families and stuff. Like, if they want crazy edgy stuff, there's books for that too, but you promote a wedding forever and then just don't follow through with it. That's really disappointing.
I think I honestly thought it was a bad idea to have them get married in the first place. I don't think Batman should be married or happy. I like them miserable. I like a lot of my characters miserable because it makes it more interesting. Who wants them to be happy? There's nothing to do. So I think they could have told some stories, but as soon as they did announce that Catwoman #1 ongoing, I was like, they're not getting married. I knew it. I knew they weren't getting married. I go, why would she get her own #1 ongoing if they're just going to get married? It doesn't make sense to me. So, I mean, I think it wasn't spoiled for me, but the fact that they spoiled it in such detail in the article, that's what I'm so unhappy about.
Well, honestly, I think the idea of a marriage, like being happiness, like there's different people they're accustomed to writing, loner, like maybe guys just dating, those kind of characters, no stable relationships, because that's what they're used to. That's all they're used to.
Yeah.
But it's like, the thing about it is, a marriage can work. Like, you can work and you make. I've not known any marriage that not have some kind of, drama. And sometimes it's a lot worse. I'm not even talking about, as a show, Batman hooking up with Talia, or Talia coming around being the other cat, and there's a cat fight between Talia and Catwoman. There you go. There's a possible story arc. And like a Catwoman solo book with her being married, then you're going to have Batman cameoing in that Catwoman book on a probably semi-regular basis if she was married. So the idea of, well, they have to be separate. It's like, it doesn't have to be that way, but like they're so used to that pattern, and it's just a stagnant creative lack of creativity with it.
I
like,
think just for me personally, I just thought Batman shouldn't be married. Like that's my opinion. I don't think it works for that character. I think it works for Superman. I don't think it works for Batman. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's like, well, I think like if they got married, like if I was doing the book, I'd go full 80s cheese. They actually get married, everything's nice, and ninjas come in through the windows and kill Catwoman, and she fakes her death and does her own book. So, and then
now, geez, that actually sounds like a comic book, though. That that's the what a twist, and action and fake death.
They're married, but she's dead. She's not like maybe like the first 6 issues of her solo book. She's the one kind of secret spy stealth thing, and then Bruce finds out she's not dead, and they have a little spat, but they're still married, even though he's like technically married to a corpse according to whatever, you know,
legally dead according to the law. But
exactly, so she can do her thing. Biggest
I wouldn't mind if they killed the rest of the Bat family, to be honest with you.
Ouch.
Starting with Damian Wayne. Just kill Damian Wayne on every page.
Could you just straight up make him a villain at this point? I don't know. My introduction to Damian was these DC animated movies, because that was kind of my gateway drug for DC Comics while I was in college, with all these films. And he just comes off as a bit of a Mary Sue character. I kind of enjoyed him as the foil to Superboy in Super Sons, where Superboy can be a little bit more naive and idealistic, and Damian can be a little bit more street smart and knowledgeable of how cruel the world is. But now they're doing like this Teen Titan thing, where I guess he's killing people and he's rebelling against authority. I don't know. Robin, to me, is such a character of the 1950s. He was supposed to be this little kid that the 13-year-olds buying comics would identify with, so they could feel like they were going with Batman on the adventure. And it's kind of hard it's really hard to sell that with a semi-realistic Batman, because is he still a noble character if he's bringing children into his war on crime? So do you have to make like Batman sort of like this dark and insane character to make that work? It's possible to find a good balance for that, but I don't think that psychopathic 10-year-olds is necessarily the right balance to find between the gritty and the youthful character.
Yeah, I actually liked Damian when he was with Dick as Batman, because I've never liked the idea of Bruce Wayne as Batman going into space and dealing with aliens, like outside of like kind of a Dick Sprang over the top 60s kind of feel. Like that right there, it's context. Like I can't. It's hard. It's like with X-Men with magic. I don't really like X-Men science fiction. Fine. Spider-Man with science fiction. Fine. You can delve in a little bit of magic. Certain characters working with outside their like sci-fi space drama and alien ships and source walls and Batman. It just never really clicked. But Dick Grayson, I could see, because it's time with the Teen Titans. So Dick Grayson is Batman with Damian. So this kind of happy-go-lucky kind of guy, because he's much. I like Dick Grayson more times not than Bruce, because the way people write him, it's like because Bruce, he could do anything with enough preparation. Like, I like to see Bruce get his ass kicked. I like to see him fail, because I like when Bane broke. When Bane broke out the people in Arkham and Nightfall and had Batman for a month, hardly any sleep, go round everybody up, and then Bane just kicks open the door of the Wayne Manor. Bruce with a beard, he's like, oh, and he chases him into the Batcave, breaks his back, carries his broken body, the Gotham's version of Times Square. This is your hero. I broke him, and throws him to the people. Like that right there, I was like, yes, now that's what should happen. That right there, because it's like a down moment to see Bruce broken and weak and not be able to be that. Like that right there, that's Batman when I like it. Like the fact that could happen. Yes, it didn't last that long in the grand scheme of things, but that was interesting. With enough planning, he can do anything. Like that's the most boring thing ever.
I think the appeal of it is Batman he's essentially a cripple in the DC universe. He doesn't have the ability to make himself bulletproof or something. So I think the coolness of Batman comes when he can use his brain to contribute to this team of gods, essentially. And it's almost like he's our viewpoint into, I could never like lift planets with my mind or anything, but maybe I could be like a Batman if I work hard or am, very studious and very diligent or something. And when he becomes a god, then it sort of breaks that humanizing aspect of the character where I don't think I could be like a millionaire, running around at night in a bat suit, but I feel like I could become someone like Batman in that you could become smarter, you could become a better version of you.
I'd rather become the question. Hide my faith. Have just like basically just Batman-ish, but not really. Like,
yeah, powers too.
No, what the question? No, he's just a dude. He was just a detective.
Really?
He just only thing he had was a gas, the mask. And he hits himself with the gas, changes his hair color, and changes actually it fixes the mask to his face, so he has no face.
Okay, and he's good at fighting.
Yeah, like he was trained in non-parbat and everything like that.
Okay, I was just assumed he was extra strong or something.
No.
Cool.
I found in like a lot of the Batman Justice League books that I've read, when he's on the Justice League, they tend to dumb down all the other characters to make him look smarter, which is kind of annoying because it's like, I know Hal Jordan's not the smartest guy in the world, but he's not an idiot. And Barry Allen is like a forensic scientist, and Clark Kent is a pretty smart dude himself. So it's like, I know they're not, on Batman's level, but I feel like they dumb them all down and they're all standing around and Batman's like, oh, I got this idea. And I'm like, come on, all of you could have figured this out. You're all smarter than this in your solo books, but once you're together, it's like Batman is the only one that can come up with the answer.
I think part of the problem here too is Batman's at his best when he's fighting like street level crime. I mean, he should be against the Penguin and the Joker and Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy even.
Cobra, like going against Cobra,
right?
The snake hole and everything. Yeah, that's fine.
He doesn't stack up as well when you go up against like Darkseid or the Anti-Monitor and stuff. So I think that's why he seems a little almost silly on the Justice League. It's like, yeah, we got this world's smartest detective, but I have heat vision and can fly.
And nobody ever shows him. Nobody ever really shows him doing detecting work anymore.
Exactly, that's the problem. It's detective comics. He ought to be out there solving crimes and sleuthing around and stuff. You just see him punching people most of the time.
But it takes a little research to write a good detective story, or unless you're like in the BBC Sherlock school of thought, and being smart means you magically know everything your enemy is thinking a million chess moves ahead of them.
To show the fact that he's, an idea that, he's the world's greatest detective and this and that. That's why I like the Golden Age Batman more. The fact that he was breaking necks and shooting, Hugo Strange and old Golden Age stuff. If you all are interested in Batman, like those listening, go pick up the Batman Chronicles or whatever that's equivalent. The Golden Age stories, the first volume. In it, Hugo Strange shows up. In the first issue, Hugo Strange has these monster men. He takes homeless people and injects them in basically equivalent of the Titan formula from the Arkham game. And they turn into like 10-foot tall, like mindless giants that do Hugo Strange's work. Batman and his Bat gyrocopter comes along. This is after Batman gets injected with the same formula, but he's able to fight it off because he's Batman, of course. So that's the same thing that happens in the game in a way, a little bit. But Batman and his gyrocopter comes along. He throws down a noose, grabs one of these like giant hobo monster men, and then lynches him from his gyrocopter, and then goes and blows up the castle where all the monster men are. The Golden Age stuff is insane. Batman melts down Silver, and then while vampires are sleeping, he shoots them while they're sleeping with these silver bullets.
Yeah.
It's great.
There's numerous instances of him using guns in the older comics. They always say, Batman doesn't use guns. Well, it depends on how he's written. It's kind of like Batman never smiles. It's like, okay, he's a man, right? He does smile sometimes.
Yeah, I find myself just liking the older stuff more, but yeah, I feel bad for the shops that have been having to go through this because, Feisty, she's I think up to 6 cancellations so far for number 50, and this right here did not have to happen. This is an editorial screw up, and somebody should lose their job. Not this. I don't want nobody to lose their job. No, there needs to be consequences. Like with like when DC Fans United, he mentioned to me about that Fourth World omnibus, the Jack Kirby Fourth World book, and that somebody in editorial screwed up, did not do their due diligence, and this book came out like 1,000+ pages, like 1,200 pages of book, and it was just a mess. There were errors all over the place. Pages weren't printed right. There was all this, that. That right there, somebody should be fired for, because you can't fire anybody at the printers because they're all unionized. You can't. It's hard to fire somebody in a union. I know, but that right there, somebody should have gotten their job taken away from them. And this is what happens. You don't do your job, you lose it. But there's a lot of people. Oh, don't get anybody in trouble.
Oh yeah,
people, that kind of stuff.
Editorial, when they misprinted the 25th anniversary of Crisis on Infinite Earths, that got shipped with some print errors, and yeah, people lost their jobs over that. But yeah, Fourth World, I don't know. It's like DC just doesn't care now. I don't know how editorial gets away with this stuff, especially on something as big as the Fourth World omnibus, and it had like duplicate pages and pages missing, and just I tried to tell as many people ahead of time, just do not buy that book.
Maybe we should boycott all of these books with printer errors in them.
Oh, bringing it back to the topic. About half an hour in.
We are nearly 30 minutes in and finally got to the topic of tonight's stream.
You sure you don't want to talk about Star Wars some more?
Don't bring Star Wars up.
Star Wars. Yeah, boycotts. Well, since you brought it up, Marmaduke, you want to lead off on that? Like, what do you think about the whole deal? Because we've seen it from both sides, right? People, basically, if they don't agree with someone, they want to boycott their book for whatever reason. And I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm just guessing that all four of us would probably be in agreement that the problem with boycotts is we like comic book shops, and we don't want comic book shops going out of business. We don't want creators who've done nothing wrong being penalized for behavior of their peers or their overseers at their company. We want good creators to succeed. So maybe the interesting thing about boycotts coming up at all is, this is a culture war thing. I remember, boycott Disney discussions way back in the early 90s when maybe like phase 1 of the culture wars was going on. So when boycotts come up, we are kind of talking about politics again in relation to comics. And just the last dispute I remember most clearly is over Antarctic Press, where the argument I was having these discussions with people who their argument was, well, Antarctic Press, because they've caved, we need to punish them. We need to teach them a lesson so that they come in line and that they don't blackball creators. And my response to that was, I get what you're saying, but that's not POTUS Thump's fault. That's not Rag Zombie's fault. Right. I want people like that to be able to succeed so that we have more than one success in the independent comic universe. Or I want multiple successes in, I guess, what you'd call kind of like the broad umbrella of people who love comics who aren't particularly interested in social justice comics. So I guess the thing about boycotting is I empathize a bit with the people who are talking about boycotts, but I sort of see it like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, for me, it's like you're seeing these books come out, like, especially something from Antarctica Press. And it's like, oh, we're like, saw the calls for the Antarctica Press boycott, and I'm laughing because like you probably didn't even know Antarctica Press existed till a week ago.
Right? Exactly.
Like, how could you boycott something you're not going to buy to begin with? It's like, I'm not going to buy. Google, Gold Diggers or Battle Nun or whatever that's called. I don't care. I ain't gonna buy that because they didn't support my boy. That kind of stuff. It's like, it's really dumb because you have POTUS Thump, you have Timothy Lim, you have
Rags.
I forgot his name, but like you have in that team, because it's more than one person. It's a multiple team, international team making that, and so you're going to hurt and you're going to mother F these people because of a slight.
Yeah.
Hey, business. It happens.
It wasn't just anyone, too. I mean, POTUS and Rags, those are like cornerstones of our community, too. It's like, you're going to throw those people under the bus over this? Like, what are you thinking? You know,
it goes to show the mentality, though. That's the problem. There's a savage mentality in this community at times, like from the same people that have names about like their names equate to something. Maybe it's ironic the fact that their names equate to being like knowledgeable about comics or something on those lines, but don't know who Alan Davis is or George Perez or Barry Windsor Smith. Like they know more about these horrible comic creators that will, bash 9/11 or this, that, whatever, block list. They know about those people, but they don't know about good creators, good comics. Like you say, hey, have you ever read this? I didn't know that existed. Like that kind of stuff. Like this, it must make you want to pull your hair out because it's like there's good comics out there. There's nothing good. Like, turn around. I guarantee your comic shop would be ecstatic for you to go through the back issue bins, maybe even like the old trade paperback stuff that's probably like discounted, and go through. There's good stuff in there. Just because it isn't on a new release shelf, a sale is a sale to a comic shop. Yes, granted, they need monthly business and weekly business. Yes, but money is money. Don't just like, I ain't gonna buy nothing. My shop didn't have anything I wanted last week, on the new release rack. So I picked up Proxima Centauri, that Image book that Farrell Dalrymple did. It was like a week or two ago or whatever. And I picked up an old Uncanny issue. It wasn't much, but that's all I could think of at the time because it was getting kind of hot in the shop because they're having some issues lately, AC and all this and that. So
what is it with comic book shops and their AC not working? Is that like a rule or something?
Mine works.
All right. Well, if you're ever in New York and you're way too hot,
Rochester, New York, at first print.
I only have to use it like July and August though, because the rest of the time it's like 2 degrees here. So
you got a blast furnace because of New York. It's like, there's a glacier moving by outside, and you can come
pretty much
come inside the shop.
No, on the topic there, the boycotts. Man, I don't know. Like, you guys, anyone can do whatever. I don't like to tell people what to do. Do whatever you want. If you don't like somebody because of their politics or they're an asshole on, can I swear? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
If they're a jerk on Twitter and you don't want to buy their stuff, great. I've done it. I've had personal experiences with creators and I was like, oh boy, I don't really like this guy.
Yeah.
Guess I don't really want to read his stuff anymore. And, that does come into... It puts me in a very odd position as a comic book store owner because I am a fan first. I'll always be a fan, but it is a business too. So I understand. I buy things from people I don't like. I buy things from people I really like, people I've met, people I don't know. I don't do a background check on everybody's comic that I do, and I don't do a background check on the people that I sell to. I don't care. If you want that book that I think is terrible, I will order it and buy it for you. I don't care. I just want the business, and I don't judge you. I don't make fun of you. I just go, wow, that book is pretty terrible, but he likes it, so whatever, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the back issue thing is great. Like, there's tons and tons of back issues, and I have a huge selection of back issues. I bought a collection a while ago. It's 300 long boxes, and I'm getting through some of it. And I'm pulling stuff out and just like, oh, I want to read this. Oh, I want to read this. And they're great stories. So if there's nothing new that you want, but you want to support your comic book shop, buy back issues because they have a hell of a lot better margin on those back issues than they do on the new stuff. They're making way more money on the back issues. So that's one thing. But I say support the guys you do like. That's what you want to do. So if you go out and you're like, man, this John Malin guy, I love his work, and he's got such and such a book out this month, so I'm going to buy that, Or I like this, I like Josh Williamson, the writer of Flash. I buy everything, or I obviously buy everything, but I read everything that guy does. So I really like to support him, and I tweet about him. What I do say is, like, I've been blocked by a number of creators just for who I follow. I've unfollowed creators just because they spaz out, or I've muted them. But the thing I can't stand is we constantly give these people attention. It's like, yes, I know that insane comic book writer is going to keep spewing crap all day. I don't need to see the screenshot on my feed. He's already blocked me, or I've unfollowed him and muted him. and I get it. I understand sometimes you just have to say something or you just want to say something. But like after a while, I just don't want to see them on my feed anymore, you know?
I've sadly had to unfollow various comic writers just because I can't ignore their nonsense sometimes, and it's real political. Well,
like I'm trying to get to DFU. I'm trying to get to his. I'm trying to like. You don't like. It's okay. People are pricks. It happens.
You don't need to follow Jerry Conway. It's like
exactly. It's like, but
it's
Jerry
like
Conway, and like, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme. In the grand scheme of things, he's already put his time in. His brain is probably rotting inside his skull at this point. Who knows?
That's what's so hard about it, though. I mean, he is a bit of a legend. Like, he did such a ridiculous amount of stuff for DC. Like, you go to his wiki page, you got to scroll for a bit just to get through his works. It's
so he created Punisher, Firestorm, right? Like,
yeah.
Two characters that I think is cool, but when you go to his feed, you're like, oh boy.
Exactly. You know, it's crazy. Like, not just political stuff, but like race-based stuff, and just going off the wall. I finally had to just unfollow him. But we did a live stream. We talked about him before. We even tried to have him come on. We really reached out to him, but I don't know. He's pretty far gone.
It's like trying to you can't cure crazy, you can't fix stupid. So don't even try. Don't get suckered into it because that makes you crazy and it can make you stupid. But it's this mentality. Like I understand that there's people like that's why follow some British creators. So when they complain about Brexit and UKIP or this, that, whatever, you're like, what? I don't care, because it doesn't matter.
Jeremy Corbyn? Who's Jeremy Corbyn?
Oh, Theresa May. It's like, whatever. It doesn't matter.
You just outed yourself as a Sargon of Akkad follower, Larry King Undead.
Actually, I'm not a Sargon person.
Really?
I can't stand Sargon, but like in his independent liberals, the liberals that stand together alone. He's an expat Brit that I follow, but but I follow a couple of 2000 AD guys. They work on 2000 AD, mainly like Chris Weston and like Pat Mills and a couple of these other guys. But the main thing is, it's like you get these creators that they go on these rants. It's like for as much. This was so weird. I had met one time. I met Mark Waid years ago, and he was so cool. I met him. I talked to him for like 15 minutes, and because it was like kind of a lull period around lunch, like everybody went to lunch, and I guess he'd already had his or something. But and he was a cool dude. Same thing with Eric Larson, who I've met multiple times at Heroes Con.
Yeah,
just nothing, and like he'll do free sketches if he isn't doing other sketches. Like he'll do like you want a Savage Dragon, you want like his Ben Grimm the thing was amazing. I loved it. But online interaction, it's like two different people, and it's crazy. It's like, I'm like, have you ever met him? It's like, granted, you can't never really know, who's the real person. Maybe it's an amalgamation of the two, but I don't know. It's like the online persona and the person. But you meet some of these comics creators. I'll name them. Alexis Zurich, the artist on that, it's that Black Mask book, which I should have known better, of course. But the Space Riders book, probably heard about that one.
I don't know that one.
David, you know about that one?
Space Riders?
Yeah, it was a Black Mask book, kind of Kirby looking over the top.
Yeah, like I don't order a whole lot, and it hurts my eyes.
Okay, yeah, well, I met the artist on that, and he was the rudest person I have ever met at a convention. And it's like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, just standing there, like what? What do you want? I'm like, whoa, nice attitude, dude. I'm thinking this stuff, and I'm like, hey, can I get your book? Because he's the only one selling it. The writer was there, but they're separated by like 2 different islands, and the writer was the nicest guy. Fabian Rangel Jr. is the writer's name. Great dude. Artist, not so much. And I was like, all right, I'm never buying another book from this guy again. If I already had my money out, I would have just put it back in my pocket, turned around, and walked away, and left him hanging. But I was like, you know what? Never again. I wanted the book because there's I like it, but I'm never buying a sequel to it. But that kind of stuff, the interaction. Maybe he's a nice guy on Twitter. Probably not. But you see some of these people like that. The not Frank Quitely dude. Ramon Villalobos. The one that does that. He couldn't draw the Hawk, the string on Hawk Girl or Hawkeye's arrow quiver.
America Chavez artist.
Yeah, that's him. That's the guy. He's also doing the Vertigo stuff. But there was like nobody around his table. Heroes. I was like,
now that can actually look cool if the heroes got like a magic bow or something.
Oh, you mean Rob Liefeld Shaft?
Well, you know how I feel about Liefeld, but like, say it was Artemis or something, like some kind of archer with a magic bow, then you wouldn't have to show the string, I think. Even maybe to have the arrows replenish themselves, but I don't know. That's just kind of an idea I think looks cool. But it was on Kate Bishop. She would have to have a bowstring.
She should have one.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. That's just laziness. It's literally one line.
I think I met that guy at Heroes Con too. I wonder if he was there like 2 years ago. I think I met him.
He might have been.
Is he a big guy? He's a big fella.
Yeah. No, that's not what I remember because
Yeah, I think I have met him, and he was super nice, but I could see where there's a little bit of, I don't know, like, just you get this persona online, because I've met Mark Waid before in person, too. I chatted with him maybe for 5 minutes. I told him I really liked his Fantastic Four run, and he was actually pretty cool. I sat in on a panel, and I thought he was kind of, I thought he was okay on the panel. Talking to him one-on-one, he was, I thought, better. But then when I see what he says online, and now obviously he doesn't have any online presence, I don't know. There's something off about him, and that's actually really sad because I was a big fan of his work, and I still am of his older work, obviously, but it's definitely affected his newer work. His Champions run wasn't very good. This Ant-Man and Wasp book that's out, I don't really care for it personally, and it's weird. It's weird what happens to somebody.
Yeah, it's like I think that right there. Like last panel I really sat at was wow, it's been a long time. It was probably 2008 because like I used to go for all 3 days for Heroes Con, and it was one of the Image panels, and it was Robert Kirkman, Jonathan Hickman, Eric Stevenson, Eric Larson, and I think Colleen Dorn and somebody else. And it was like but Kirkman was like busting my balls the entire time, which was hilarious. Huh. Because I was the only one sitting in the front row. Everybody was scared, so they're sitting like mid row. I'm like, sit up front. Why not? Like, why sit in the back? It's like, and it was kind of funny because this is before the Walking Dead show happened. So, but yeah, it's like just it was like that kind of stuff. Like most of them were like really, like I'd say like really good about interacting with people. Like there is something to be said for like customer interaction and just fan. Like anybody could be a fan. Fan doesn't cost nothing at all, but be a customer to a recurring customer, not just once in a blue moon. You got to have good interaction with people. I mean, I've been selling mini comics for years now, like to varying successes. And lately, in the past week, I've been doing great. Yeah. My new book, Beyond Trash, now available. Just email me at LarryKingUndead@gmail.com, and I will sort out details with you and everything. $5, folks. International shipping not available currently. It's the U.S. Yes, but I've had people reach out and it's like, hey, could you cut me a deal, this, that, whatever, and like I'll work with people if I can.
Cut you a deal? It's only $5 to begin with.
Multiple copies. I actually sold a couple multiple copies and like this and that. Like, so I was surprised about that myself. So hey, I'm not gonna complain too much. I was like,
$5 is a really good price, though, especially. Well, that
includes the shipping and everything. I screwed up when I put the tweet up earlier. I was like, we need an edit button, damn it.
Oh man, tell me about it.
But it's like interacting with people, even on a small level. I'm a very cantankerous person. I get DFU says, "Oh, Larry hates everything." I make a list of what I don't hate. Yeah, I hate a lot of things, but that makes what I love that much stronger. So in doing so, if you're selling product, whether it be online or at conventions, like the idea of boycotts coming up when you're like, hey, I met this person, they're a nice person, why would I boycott them? That kind of thing. And like shutting it down. That's what I think, it's been brought up in the chat that the idea of boycotts, it's like more likely you're not going to buy that book anyway. It's like, I'm not going to buy Marvel books until they do this. I'm not even buying Marvel books now. it's this it's a hollow threat.
I think it happens with if you're not going to buy it, this is what you need to do. You need to not pre-order books. The comic book stores that are out there need to stop over-ordering things. So if you're not getting pre-orders, even if it is Fantastic Four #1, and you're like, people are going to want Fantastic Four. If nobody is pre-ordering it, no one's putting it on your pull list, you order accordingly. Like, it's a #1, so you know it's going to sell, but you don't need to order like they wanted me to order 105 copies. I'm not going to do that. So, I would look at my list and see how many pre-orders I have, and I'll go, okay, I'll order that, and I'll have some for the floor, and that's it. This is the way they get the message, because the way our system is now, you have to go through pre-orders, and all the risk is on the retailer. I don't have any kind of returnability whatsoever, especially with Marvel books. They've never, in the 9 years of owning a shop, have ever offered any sort of returnability for any of the products, even if they screw them up. So that's the thing. If you're a customer and you have a pull list, you make sure you let them know what books you want, and you make sure you let them know, hey, who's writing that? Oh, I don't really care for that person, so I'm not going to write that. So this is the way you get a message, across. And it's the fans, and it's fans and customers, and it's the comic book shops. Comic book shops got to smarten up and be like, listen, I don't care if they're offering this many variants and they're offering another extra 5% discount if I hit this threshold. You got to hold firm and go, listen, I know the variants probably will sell, but the regular copies won't. So I'm going to be stuck with 40 copies at a $6 price point sitting on my shelf rotting. So, you got to find that. You're like, yeah, that formula works for your shop, but, you don't need to overorder.
Do you count pre-orders as pull lists as pre-orders?
Oh,
or
yeah.
It's so you mean over-ordering past that, this. Well, to reach this goal, to reach this 105 to get this special thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had 30 people on a pull list. 30 people will be like, hey, add Fantastic Four to my pull list. Okay. So I got 30 people that I know I'm going to place an order for directly. And then I'll be like, okay, well, it's a #1, so I know I'll probably sell this much for just people that didn't add to their polls, because, there's definitely people that are impulse buying and oh, that's a #1, I want it, or they just don't get the whole concept of pull bags and stuff. There's a lot of people out there that I've realized that. Or they don't like to have a pull bag because they change things from week to week. They're like, yeah, I got this issue #7 and now I'm picking up #14 of it. And oh, okay, whatever. But yeah, I go through who puts things on pull bags, and then kind of what I think is going to sell on the floor.
Yeah, but you don't go with what they want you to. You got to order so many to get a reward. You just order what you know you can sell.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the rewards make sense or the incentives make sense and you do it, but a lot, with Fantastic Four, they want me to order 105 copies of a $6 book, and there's no way. It's just not going to happen. I'm not that big of a store.
Yeah. The amount they want you to order is crazy.
Yeah, my thinking of it is, that right there, it'll hurt you, dude. It'll if you order that many, you'd be stuck with 20, 30, 40 copies if it, people don't come in for it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to easily sell 50 copies of the book, but I want to sell them all, and what if the variants don't, because you order 105 copies, that's 105 of the regular book. That doesn't include the blanks that would unlock. So then I could get blank sketch covers, and I would order say 15 of those, and then there would be variants. So I would order those that. All that isn't included in the 105. It's just straight 105 regular copies to then be able to give them more money. So in that sense, I'm kind of DC worked it out better, and a lot of times their stuff counts all together. if they do something like that, but normally they don't. Normally it's just like you can order an A cover and a B cover, and they might have a 1 in 25. And my DC stuff does sell in the store, so ordering 25 copies of something is not a big deal.
How did Amazing Spider-Man 800 sell? Did you get rid of all of those?
No, but I had a funny thing happen to my 800s. 20 copies didn't have a top staple. So they never stapled it. It was a hard sell at $10. But I did sell all my variants because I have one customer that is a Spider-Man freak and just buys everything. And so those were all pre-sold. So I did well with the book, but I still have copies of it.
Yeah. Just from looking at my local comic shop, they had a lot left too. It kind of seemed like they overdid it with 800, just so many covers and the high price point and everything. But there are those Spider-Man fanatics that'll just buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question for DMI.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's of real interest to me is how, like sort of crazy politics are making their way into comics. So it's not just like, oh, it's a story with some political aspects to it, but it's, like punch a Nazi, punch a straight white male kind of a stuff coded into comics. So the thing I'm worried about is that the bigger culture is so toxic. Traditionally these fantasy stories were the kind of root of escapism from just how garbage the bigger political climate is. What I'm worried about is now that that's starting to creep into comics, it's sort of like people will have it out. If people disagree with each other over really, basic ideas like what right is, then they're not going to stop fighting over it in their comic books. So I guess my question for DMI is, you've seen examples of, creators just doing things that drive you nuts. The whole boycotting thing kind of drove you nuts. Do you see any positives, though, from maybe political discussions working their way into comic books? So if we don't like having like really bad or violent politics in our comic books, is there a positive dimension in that we're talking about comics and politics more over the internet? Do you ever see someone come in and say, well, I'm getting this because I heard people talking about it on Twitter or YouTube?
No,
Okay,
I don't really, like I see some, it's weird because my customers don't really, I don't think a lot of them bring up any kind of Twitter stuff or social media stuff and all that stuff. I have some people that are outside of the comic book industry, you could tell, or outside the fandom, come in and go, oh, I'm teaching the class on black superheroes, so do you have any black superheroes? But, and like, oh, hey, there's this, and this, and, this is written by this, and this is written by this person. But honestly, no, I don't really see this right now. The political landscape is very toxic, and I try to stay away from speaking about any of it, to be honest with you.
There's no positive dimension to it yet?
Not that I see, no.
Okay.
I brought up something in my shop. I was like, hey, you hear about this? And they look at me like I had like antenna growing out of my head. Like something with that, like the comics Twitter stuff. And like, they don't know, they don't care. They just sell the books that comes into the shop.
Some days I wish I did that. Just not even got on Twitter in 2013. Like that's when I started. And some days I really wish that I didn't know anything about these people and I just sold the books.
Ignorance is bliss.
And I never watched a YouTube video, but then some days I do like it because it's very informative to me and to know what I think is going to sell, what's not.
Yeah. Absolutely. Kind of hard to know ahead of time what's going to sell and what isn't, though. Like the, what was it? Batman Elmer Fudd.
That thing, my store sold out of that. Like, they got like 25 copies, like 30 copies or something, and they were sold out that day.
Yeah.
By the time I got there like a little after 1, and they opened up at 10, so between 10 a.m. and 1, they'd already sold out all their copies. Which I guess it broke on something, maybe broke online or something. Like, hey, this is a great book. It was Lee Weeks doing the art, so that's can't go wrong there. But
right.
Like I had to get it digitally. It sucked. I had to get it digitally, but I wanted to read it that bad. So
I had to buy it on digital too. They just had like a sad little fourth printing, all beat up on the shelf. I was like, holy crap, this sold really well. Because I can't get to the LCS, you know, I get like once a month or something. I live, it's 60 miles away where I live. It's really rural. So
Yeah,
when I do
I'm
get
the same
there,
boat.
yeah, it's really hit or miss what I can get. Like Mr. Miracle, too. You know, you get there and it's a third printing. I'm like, what the heck? But yeah, we were talking about Twitter and stuff. I think we forget, you know, comics fandom isn't that big to begin with, but then the Twitter little universe of comics universe is even like a niche group within the niche group. Like, it's not as many people as we think it is. In just a few months, I've been able to interact with, it seems like pretty much everybody who's involved in it. It's kind of crazy. So
Yeah, same here. It's like it's a resource. I treat Twitter as a garden. You don't let the garden grow wild. You don't let the grass get high. You don't let the snakes get in there. You don't let the bugs eat everything up. You keep everything nice and fertilized and kept well. And if you have people on your timeline that are aggravating you, unfollow, mute them. You know, get rid of them if you have to. And this idea of people like, you know, like, oh, I can't believe they said this. Don't read it. If it's like that, what is his name? Is it Chance the Rapper or something? You know, they just this thing is online bullying. You know, close your eyes. You know, that thing
sure.
or whatever. You know, whatever. Yeah, just turn it off. Yeah.
There's a
I tell you
dimension.
though. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Well, my thought is there's a dimension of Twitter drama where it's just sort of reveling in like the internet blood sports of it all. It's sort of like sitting on the sidelines and just laughing as people blow each other up over silly things. But
I'm the same way. I do that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the other dimension of it is if a creator I like is hurting his book, you would think there would be kind of a friendly way where it's not I'm involving myself in the Twitter drama or I'm blowing up the Twitter drama. You would think it would be possible for me to say, I don't think this is good for your book. I don't think this is good for your co-creators. But as the politics gets more and more toxic, then even that kind of a statement, that sort of neutral statement, gets you lumped in with all the alt-right trolls coming after me. So it's sort of like it's become harder for us to even say, it's not that I agree or disagree with you. I just think that you should calm it down online. Because the thing is, I look at my Twitter as an information gatherer for, you know, interesting artists inside and outside of the comic book industry. I'm just obsessed with finding as many artists as I can on Twitter because I like looking at pretty and cute stuff. But it's one thing to say, well, I'll just not care if a creator says something dumb online. But if they keep saying something dumb online, they're not giving me the content I've come to Twitter looking for. I've come to Twitter, you know, eager to lap up as much of the pictures of their art as they can give me and retweet it a bunch and just celebrate the art. But I guess my kind of counterpoint to Larry King is, you know, it's true that you could just ignore it if they're saying something you don't like. But by bringing all of their political views onto Twitter, they're violating what most people are coming to Twitter to do if they're into comic books. They're coming to see work by the comic book creators they like.
Right. I mean, we don't follow these guys because of who they voted for. We follow them because we look at our bookshelf and their names are on the sides of the books. You know, it's like I follow Kurt Busiek, and it's like, really, his name's Kurt Busiek resists? It's like, dude, people don't follow you because of who you voted for. They follow you because you write Astro City. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, and I think it's when you go to a creator and say, "Hey, listen, I don't think this is good for your book sales or good for it," and then they kind of come back with something like "F you, don't buy my books anyway," and they look at your follower list or whatever, and they just group you in with everybody. Like, I don't control who follows me. I don't do background checks on who follows me. I don't care who retweets me. I agree with a lot of people. I disagree with a lot of people. I make friends with anybody. So it's kind of when they do kind of do that and go, hey, this isn't good for your book, or literally I'm losing money because you're being a jerk on Twitter. They do take it kind of, they do get a defensive position in it. And it's like, you don't know how many people are involved. You continue to be a jerk on Twitter, and you hurt the comic book shop sales. You hurt all your co-creators' money. You hurt the UPS driver. You hurt Diamond distributor. You hurt the warehouse guy. Like, you hurt everybody. And I know it's just a little bit of one person doesn't buy your book. It's barely, you don't even ever will even notice it. But if enough people don't buy your book, or you're a jerk to enough people in the industry, then you won't have a job. And I think that will eventually correct itself.
Yeah, they don't clue into how much damage they're doing. It's not like, I mean, they don't realize people will stop reading comics. There are tons of people who are like, oh yeah, I used to read comics back in the 80s, back in the 90s, but I don't read them now.
Here's the same thing about wrestling. It's wrestling and comics are very tied together. Used to be, you know, like, oh my God, I used to watch wrestling. I remember this, remember that. And it's like 25 years ago. Like, something that hasn't happened in many years. Same thing with comics. Like, oh, I used to read comics. Like, yeah, when they were like $1.50, $2 a piece. Now it's like $4, $5. It's like, ugh. But
and it's half,
like
half ads on top of that.
Oh yeah, and like then the paper quality sucks. No matter how much Eric Larson's saying like newsprint is worse and costs too much. And like,
Marvel paper sucks.
Marvel is the worst. Image and Marvel are tied for the worst. DC is better. Valiant has the best high quality stock, but I prefer alternative methods. I prefer the newsprint. For the covers, but like but speaking about the creators, like if somebody were to come up to you, either one of you three, and like, hey man, you need to stop doing this. It's like if somebody did that, I've had people do that to me, and I'm like, F off, you did. It's like, and it's like, well, I'm looking out for you. I don't need a babysitter. I don't care where you're coming from. So I get super defensive about that myself. So I understand where these creators come from. That's why I don't bother. Because
I had someone DM me. I had two experiences with that. I had someone DM me that I really respect and told me, was kind of a friendly way of saying, hey, watch out this way. And I took that advice. It was very good advice, and I was doing something that I shouldn't have been doing, and he saw that and was like, hey, this is stupid. Then I've had another person who DM'd me really, really creepy things about me being involved in the wrong crowd. And I don't need that. And if you look at my feed, I usually just post pictures of old comics, and I'll say one or two snarky things maybe here and there, and I joke around and I post things I like. I don't really think that there's anything wrong with my feed. So that, I took that the wrong way when I got some weird DMs.
Your feed's wrong because you bashed one of my favorite storylines, Operation Zero Tolerance. My friend Antonio. My friend Antonio is down in Australia. I do a podcast with him. He saw that and he's like, how dare he? Because the idea is like Operation Zero Tolerance, because they were like, this was back when they were pushing new characters. Maggot, Cecilia Reyes, hated
Marrow,
and Marrow. Oh God, I love Marrow. That's before they curved her bones and made her look like an angel. Like, this is back when she was like pulling the bones out and stabbing people. It was like, yes, I love that. And then like Wolverine had those gauntlets around his hands, and they were locked up in the Hulkbuster base. And there was like blind dude out in the desert, and he just recently got his eyes worked on. He might be able to see again. Sleeper Sentinels that basically take over. Like, oh, this is great. And Bastion was a great villain. And then what we get now, it's like Cyclops is the bad guy. Oh, ha, ha, ha.
I think reading that story now, I would have more of an appreciation for it. You know, we were coming after it like as a kid. I read, Age of Apocalypse, and I absolutely loved Age of Apocalypse and everything about that. And then we had the Onslaught stuff, and I loved that. So then when we did Operation Zero Tolerance, I was like, what is this?
See, I loved all of it. That's like, well, I mean, that's the thing. We're all different. We all have our personal taste, but it's like after Operation Zero Tolerance, then we had the 12, and that was a stinker. Like, the worst thing about it, that was Alan Davis. That's so bad. It's like, Alan Davis, no. It's like they let him write. It's like, no, don't do that.
They gave him too much.
Clandestine was fine because it was like self-contained, and I enjoyed that. It was really weird, British. But then, like, until Grant Morrison came in, X-Men, like after Operation Zero Tolerance and before New X-Men, the X-Men were like a wasteland of content. There was like tumbleweeds blowing through.
They didn't know what to do with them. It was crazy. Oh. They had like Claremont come back, I think, for a little bit of a run. after that. It was like around Uncanny X-Men 383 or 2 or something like that. He wrote like 8 or 9 issues. It was like, yeah, you know these characters, you write it.
And it didn't help.
No.
It's like, well, they screwed Claremont, though. It's like it was either me or Jim Lee, and they chose Jim Lee, and he didn't last, not even a year later, and he went off with the Image creators, you know?
Yep.
So, Jim Lee.
Yeah, Mr. I want to get back to making art, and like now he's corporate. He can't decide corporate stooge or artist, corporate stooge or artist. Now he's corporate boss with his Dingleberry. Like, yes, Brett Booth. Like, I hate.
Oh, yeah.
I was. Oh God,
I did want to talk about that, the whole Peter Alterna thing, and Brett, the Trash Panda Booth attacking him.
Oh, you didn't know what happened?
I saw that Peter Simeti was talking to some people and kind of like essentially suggesting like you shouldn't celebrate destroying childhoods, but what is something new developed?
No, basically what happened is there was a website that it's a paid website. They also raise funds for servers. You give them the links to the Comixology comics that you want, and they'll pirate them for you, and you pay basically it's piracy, but it's out in the open. This isn't you got to go this and that, and it's out and out piracy. Yeah. He brought it up to Comixology as well as I believe DC and Marvel and some of the other people. Like, hey, you need to maybe get your legal teams involved. And so Brett Booth steps in and does the whole, you're trying to censor creators on the left, out of for no reason. Like, I'm like, Peter, like, it's hard not to talk politics at times. It's really hard. I try not to, but I do anyway. But it's like Peter just does comics. That's like the only thing he really talks about is comics,
right?
And like books going on that like in promotion of alternative books as well. Yeah. And I went after, like, I'm like, dude, what do you mean? What are you talking about this? And I called him out, and it's like but it's like I feel like Peter is like one of us, even though he runs Alterna. He's like kind of a one man kind of deal, even though it's probably not one. He's the face of Alterna.
One of us. One of
us. And to see Peter, and he was one of the nicest people I've encountered. Like I've had conversations with him, and this and that, like through Twitter and other places and everything like that. He's a cool dude. And to see him being attacked by some third-rate '90s artist who only has a career because his buddy's Jim Lee, who before you boycott Brett Booth comics, you'd have to tell DC to put him on a book first.
Oh, that's hard.
But he's trash. But that right there, him calling as like he's been bashing, he's anti-left. I'm like, he's half Chinese, half Italian. Like, you think he's like what? White? He's like internalized white supremacy, something like that. Like,
well, he's never posted anything political. I mean, any comic book publisher should be very against piracy. Like, that was not a controversial tweet by any means.
The only thing I can think of is the fact that it goes back to what happened about 6-7 months ago with the whole the retweet of one of Richard's fans. Like, oh, Diversity in Comics told me about this, and so that caused the Tim Mayer Bond villain stuff and Villalobos stuff and that whatever Nadia Shamas. Yeah, I remember the name because of her goofy face. It looked like if the Cheshire Cat had like a pale face and it was stretched over a skeleton.
So you think like maybe like the Booth thing was like, oh, I know Peter Simeti retweets someone that uses a hashtag that DNC uses, and exactly. I can't talk to him. Like, I mean, I don't think. I mean, that could very well be the case, but that's insane.
You may breathe some of the air molecules that Richard C. Meyer has breathed. You are an internet harasser, equal.
That's why I wear a gas mask.
You think that?
Is that insane though? That's insane, right?
You think that's why?
I honestly think that comes back to it because the fact that Peter, even though Peter has some left-leaning people published through Alterna, if I was running, like, he publishes what he thinks will sell, and he's doing good. I mean, I've not disliked any Alterna book. I might not enjoyed it completely, and I probably like that kind of stuff, but I've never been like, this is garbage, I'll never read this kind of thing.
You can justify its place on the shelf. Like,
exactly.
This is a comic book.
The price point doesn't hurt anyway. It's like you only paid $1.50. For 3 Alterna books, you're paying for 1 Marvel book,
Exactly. That's going to be the business model for the future. Like,
customer service.
I think
Customer service, too.
Alterna's going to be the third biggest publisher in no time. Easy. Just got to get the word out. But do you think that's why he attacked him? Because it was totally out of the blue. You know, it's a very well-liked guy and a well-liked publisher, and he just really tore into him just over piracy of all things, which, as a comic book artist, he should be on the front lines fighting piracy.
My thesis would be that, for me, Diversity in Comics was my introduction to alternate comics. So for every Politico who doesn't care about comic books, that's a good hint that Diversity in Comics was also their introduction to alternate comics. So if you are primarily motivated by politics, what's insane to normal people makes sense to you, because you're not coming in it to, celebrate good creators and, make friends with people in the middle. You're coming in to try to move the football and make the world more in line with kind of the utopian world that you're seeking to create. So it is nuts, but within the mindset of the people going after Peter Simeti, what they think they're doing is they're cowing a dog whistler for the Richard C. Meyer hate mob into silence or into turning on people they don't like. So that's what I'm always worried about, is our hobby becoming Gamergate, becoming this is what Larry King Undead roasted me about. We're on the doll that the SGW art teachers touch you. And so I don't know if you saw this, Larry King Undead, but I did a video about Comics Verse where I thought about that, and I said that they touched me on the doll. The place where on the doll where my SGW art teachers touched me is all over the entire doll, and they have just not stopped touching me. I've gotten out of art school, and they're still touching me because they're still sending their little gaggle of young people into every hobby and interest group to continue peddling this gross nonsense. So I can't go play. I've never played D&D, but if I go play D&D, I'm going to be going into another culture war. I've never played Magic the Gathering, but if I go start playing Magic the Gathering, I'm going to be walking into another culture war, because every kid coming out of the school thinks they're supposed to be a culture warrior. So I would really like to see, even if we don't have to become politicos. We don't have to make politics our new obsession or our new hobby. But I would like to see, general comic book enthusiasts aware enough of this so that you can just sort of laugh at the BS and avoid it, not reward the BS. That would be kind of like my end game for the problem of politics in comics, because that's kind of what's made boycotting even like a topic of discussion, is people are sensing that the political world is creeping into our hobby. I kind of want everyone to be aware enough of what leftist politics are so that we can sort of have a good BS detector for it when we read comics and when we hear it discussed on like comics forums and such.
You talk about like the D&D thing, and I was like, I don't know. I don't play video games. I don't play any of the tabletop stuff. And someone had brought that to my attention about the Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop PTSD and being harassed over whatever and all this stuff. And I'm like, why is it in everything? Why is it in all our entertainment, all our TV shows, all our media, all our novels, all our comic books, every hobby? It's in everything. And it's like, it's okay to have some political things and talk about issues and stuff, but it doesn't need to control everything. And I know I do like the term that DNC says a lot about no escapism. Why is there no escapism? I don't understand why people can't just let things go. I mean, I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for Hillary either, but I got over it. My candidate that I voted for didn't win.
You didn't fall for the right-left freaking paradigm that's got everyone running around like dogs chasing their own tails.
Right.
I take offense at that statement as a cartoon Great Dane.
Fair enough. You're one of the dogs that doesn't do that.
Every dog has to stay though.
I'm one of the good token cartoon dogs.
Please tell me your house trained. You know.
So
don't
why
drag your
has
ass
it?
across my floor.
Why has it invaded everything? I don't understand. I really don't. Like, I
Okay.
don't get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think people, Marmaduke is the one person who might be able to answer this.
This is what drove me completely nuts, because they did it to art. I loved art growing up. I would just like pour over art books, and I love comic books because I saw that as the place where all the good artists were going. The good artists used to paint portraits for the popes, and now the good artists draw great comic book characters. And for this, I think it's sort of this radical wing of feminism, and they think that you're all sexist for enjoying fantasies, because what a male power fantasy really is it's your desire to rape or assert your dominance over everyone. So that has to be stopped, because the reason we have, toxic masculinity and rape culture is because we have these stories where, young boys go on adventures and save the princess. And if you sincerely believe that, little fantasy stories create man and woman, they create gender, they create identity, then for this little group, changing these things, it's like they sincerely believe that they're saving lives and saving the world by attacking comic books and changing comic books. And it's just thing after thing after thing. I've just been watching like this really creepy feminist video art where you know the type of thing, they'll like come out dressed as Jesus, and then it'll be like Jesus and lesbian pornography, and they'll cover like some weird rock songs and throw some psychedelic colors on top of it, and it'll just be in all of these elite prestigious museums and get all of this funding. And they'll get invited to all of these institutions to talk about it. And I think what happened to our schools is our schools became isolated enough that you could get away with this and no one would call you out on it. So you do like your feminist Jesus pornography thing, and everyone would kind of like cheer and say, oh, that's so transgressive. There wouldn't be one person in the room left who'd say, well, I don't really get it. I don't see what the value of that is. And since it's become this sort of really isolated space, they create class after class after class of people who want to change the world, and the comic book hobby is just one aspect of the culture that they want to bring into conformity. So they won't stop touching me on the doll, Larry King Undead. They're like ripping the doll's arms off because it was a toxically masculine doll.
Well, that's actually part of that's, if you don't mind, that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem, though. Just like it's a culture war to them. They don't seem to care about the actual hobby that they're using to influence the culture, Like Dungeons and Dragons, talk about a niche hobby. I mean, probably less than 1% of the country plays Dungeons and Dragons. Like, what is this, 1970? Like, why do they even care? But it's just they have to dominate everything. Like comic books and tabletop gaming and like Magic the Gathering, really? That game where you have to pay $4 for a little pack of silly cards with pictures on them? Like, how is that even a political issue? But what you're saying, Marmaduke, is they want to influence everything and push it in a certain direction.
The thing is, I am a religious person on the right, so I get to make fun of the religious right. I see the new left as being they're exactly like the religious right in that they see our fantasies and our hobbies as a potential area of sin, but instead of it being a sin as defined by the Bible, it's a sin as defined by weird postmodern feminist theory. So what they think they're doing is they're purifying us from the bad, horrible, anti-woman things in the culture. So and because they believe that with all their hearts, they're not going to stop. I think there has to be enough consumer pushback to say we like having fun, goofy fantasy stories with beautiful women in them. So they have to kind of like meet failure enough that they give up and I'm perfectly fine if they want to do third wave feminist comic books. Richard Meyer, he would make many shekels from that if there was like a steady stream of postmodern feminist comic book content, but they're not talented enough or knowledgeable enough to make their own comic books. So instead, what they want to do is bring their worldview into Batman, bring their worldview into Marvel. If you don't share their worldview, kind of pressure you or throw shade at you to the point where you will not make money. I think it's a turf war for them.
The strange thing about, like, when you talk about, like, the Marvel characters, though, and like how you said that they don't make their own comic books, so it's like, yeah, I don't care if you make your own comic book, or even if Marvel had some characters that they created to do that. But I feel like what they do is, especially the Alonso era, was the classic characters, they got rid of all of them. They didn't ruin them. They either put them on the shelf or made them a Hydra agent, right? And replaced them with other characters and say, hey, these are just as good as those classic characters. But they weren't. They didn't go through the same struggles. They didn't earn the name of Captain America. They didn't earn the name of Hulk. They just took a mantle because there was a void that they created. And I don't understand why you think that would sell when you have these classic characters that have been around for years. And if you wanted, Marvel Comics has always been diverse, especially, the X-Men, the Warriors, all those characters. Yeah. If you didn't have someone represented and you wanted them to, why didn't you just create a new character and they could stand on their own 2 feet right next to Captain America? You didn't need to get rid of Captain America. And that's always something that was, like, crazy to me. Like, why did you get rid of all these popular characters that have been around for 60 years?
And they didn't even do it in a smart way. Like, say for instance, you wanted to switch out Bruce Wayne for a different Batman, you'd probably have Dick Grayson or someone step in, someone that people know, has been around for ages, who's been trained by Batman. It, like, logically makes sense. You don't just drop a new character out of the sky like Riri Williams and say, oh, this is Iron Man. Is it Iron Woman? Nope, Iron Man. Where's Stoney? Don't worry about it. She's Iron Man now. Like, okay, maybe give the reader a couple of years. Like, heck, even have it be Riri. Just say, she's Rhodey's whatever niece, and she works in the lab. And slowly, like, build up. She doesn't have to be Iron Man right away.
So with that specific character, it's funny. Sorry to cut you off, but like, they named the book still Invincible Iron Man. Like, if you had confidence in that title, name it Ironheart. You could kill Tony or whatever.
It's nothing but a construct, my friend. Social
but
construct.
That's not her name. Why would you call the book Iron Man when her name's Ironheart? I don't understand that.
They missed the opportunity to call it Iron Maiden. I mean, come on.
Well, they already did that. Earth X has Iron Maiden in it. It's in the Alex Ross, Jim Krueger Earth X book with John Paul Leon. Yeah, there's Iron Maiden in that. Yeah. Go back and read that, folks. There you go. Another event you never read. Just probably, you might want to avoid Paradise X, though. That was a little rough last time I remember it.
Is that the one with the World X or Earth X or whatever? Is that the one with the
Earth X? That's the one where Captain America is basically his bum, and he's got like an A carved into his face with like scars. Red Skull Kid. Franklin Richards is Galactus. Mr. Fantastic's Doctor Doom. That's where they introduced the kind of clever little thing that he stretches his mind. Like he expands his mind. I think they use Cerebro. Cyclops runs the X-Men, but they're the lamest X-Men ever. They look like circus freaks. So there's like a wolf man and a person that's twins. I mean, there's some good stuff in that book, but it's like the Marvel's answer to Kingdom Come, and kind of like Wolverine's fat, married to Jean Grey, aging Grey. Who knows? But what I was going to say is like there's a guy named the Rageaholic, Razor Fist, on Twitter. He did a video called Hollywood Was Always Red, and it's a rant video. It's like 30 minutes, but talks about how communism had infiltrated Hollywood directors, actors, producers, writers. And like creative people, I've found there's a lot of the ones that say, oh, I don't, I joked around about exposure, you could die from exposure and everything instead of actually paying me. But you find a lot of creators, especially in comics, are socialist leaning, if not full-blown communists. And the idea of these people infiltrating influential areas of entertainment, if they did it in Hollywood in the 30s and 40s, then doing it in comics, already a niche thing back then, getting these in there, because I was watching an interview actually with Chris Claremont, talking about he was protesting, but whatever, people protest. We got to think. You have these people you socialize in a very tight knit group. Portland, Austin, these places, Los Angeles, Los Angeles is a big city, but they're people usually, they hang out with their own like-minded, if not of the same skin, usually the like mind. And that idea of communist infiltrators, like, hey man, like these people in power, like they'll work for the corporations, but basically do their, like. You can be socialist and still make a lot of money because there's always the bourgeois, the people in the party eating the caviar, driving the limousines while you're on the bread line. So it's this idea of communist infiltration. I honestly think, in some way, I say like everybody's like secretly some Soviet agent, like some like that when like Lenin, like Robo Lenin rising from his grave,
like the Simpsons.
Yeah, so not like that, but
Lenin smash.
Lenin smash. But Lenin smash proletariat. No,
capitalism.
He's broken from all the rot, from them being dead 100 years. But you see this in comics where if you look at some of the propaganda, it's I do, for the longest time, I did nothing but the standard mini comics. And in that community, it is nothing but propaganda. If you do something that's entertainment, because I had comics that just all they are is entertainment. What's the story behind this? What's the meaning? It was a zine fest out in Denver run by a trans man, a female to male named Kelly Short and Queer, saying that the diversity in comics panel, which is hilarious because of the title, but with the diversity in comics panel, was going to be held at 11:30. We asked that no Caucasians attend. That right there, and it was at a gay church. I was at a gay church. I'm here. I'm from the South, and North Carolina had the restroom ban thing, like men in the men's room, women in the women's room. None of this, I identify none of that crap. And I was thinking, I'm gonna get heat for this. Luckily, there were some cool people there. They didn't last till lunch. They were there gone by like 11:50, 12:30, around that time. Like they didn't even get like noon. And it was the cool people left because they realized this was just a nightmare. And I was there because I didn't have a ride except for my friend, who was a friend at the time, who was sitting next to me, all angry because I was selling more comics than him because I was much more personable to people. Even though I'm a real prick, and I consider myself a prick, but I was like, hey, how you doing? I'm miserable at the time. I hate being here. But, hey, how you doing? Having a great day? Well, this is the comics I did. That's the thing. That's just that's good salesmanship, and being you might have not been in a good mood, but you know how to sell your book. Stop it.
Yeah, why can't these guys on Twitter just shut up? Even if I'm
a judgmental prick, but I won't let that get in the way of me not making money. If
50% of their tweets were political and 50 were art, that would be okay. But it's more like 10% art and 90% political from a lot of these guys, like Jerry Conway. Eric Larson, I don't think I've ever seen Eric Larson post something about Savage Dragon, but plenty of stuff about Trump.
So King, I've been to maybe one or two kind of indie comic zine fest type of things, and I've gotten that same vibe. This is a little bit more of your area. This is what you do with your comics. You make them by yourself. You go to these things, you sell them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've seen things that so if I wax on a lot about SJWs in art school, you've caught the same vibe in the
there's no
comic
vibe.
fest.
It's like being inside the beast. It's being in the belly of the beast.
There we go.
Tattoos, ear gauges, man buns, iPhones, but Birkenstocks, patchouli, like the hippie, everything I am not. I black t-shirt, black pocket tee, camo pants, steel toe boots. That's just me. Like plain. I look like I would be like one of the people. He came into the like one of the the quote unquote lone wolf, that kind of thing. So, but that right there, that belly of the beast. It's like I know it. I know it pretty well. But sorry, I cut you off. Sorry.
Well, what do you think we can do? Because there's an element to arguing about SJWs online where I'm already kind of sick of it. Like I wish I could just go back to arguing about whether Batman could beat Superman in a fight, or whether Superman or Batman could beat Goku in a fight or something. But right, yeah.
He actually trained. He's the love child of Batman and Superman. He wasn't all powerful at the beginning. He got his ass kicked. He trained himself. He did kill his grandfather, his adopted grandfather, though. So, but like my suggestion, and this is why, like I was thinking about doing a series of videos, maybe at least one video. Years ago, there was Wizard Edge, which Wizard Magazine was one of their spin-off books. It was a article. It was a 6-page article with art by Jim Mahfood, actually written with Jim Mahfood illustrations about how to make your own mini comics. And the fact that now, with everybody having, you're on your phone, everybody's pretty much got iPads or some variant thereof, laptops. People are online. There are resources as far as drawing assist, drawing assistance programs, posers. There are tutorials. Like you can just make yourself a better artist. There is no excuse not to actually have physical comics. Yeah, web comics are great and all, but any and everybody can do a web comic for the most part. But actually printing up the comic seems like, oh, you'd have to go through this, process. And like, no, you just have a printer, a cheap $30, $40 printer. You have to have the will and wherewithal to actually make these comics and get them out there. And the fact that if more people were to do mini comics and kind of do mini comics as far as like what the Japanese do with the doujinshi, the fan comics, do that kind of thing. But instead of fan comics, like do your own creations. Whether clearly that's a Spider-Man book, but it's not Spider-Man. You don't have to worry about getting cease and desist from Disney. But putting more work out there, because everybody's doing comic books, and I don't have a voice. There should be more people doing books. It's like the idea of, oh, I'm to give up, and then it's not for you. Then it's like boot camp. You gonna give up? You wanna ring that bell? You're gonna quit? Quit then. We don't want you. We don't need you. You're a loser. You're a quitter. You either fight for what you love, or you don't. And the fact that more people should go out there and make mini comics and get the stigma away from, oh, that's what SJWs do, that's propaganda. It doesn't have to be. You could do comics like, you could do any kind of comic, is like we're going budget wise, and like you could do, like I'm doing my Neon Trash book, still available, folks. Check my Twitter page at Larry King and Dead. But I'm doing that. I've been doing pretty good lately. I'm happy, but the idea of, I'm happy. But to push that idea of you have to get offset printing, I have bought books from Kablam, or people that have books printed by Kablam. So technically by, you know what I mean. The Kablam books a lot of the times look awful. There's some of them that look good, but they're not the best in the world. I'm doing what I'm doing with a photocopier at Staples of all places, and it can look as good, if not better, sometimes than these books from Kablam and other print-on-demand services. And to see this idea of, well, you have to, big crowdfunding, just do a limited print run. Hey, if somebody said, hey, I did 10 mini comics, this is my book, it's whatever, it's about a girl hunting ghosts or something like that. I'm like, all right, it's limited to 10. I want to see the interest. I'd buy that in a heartbeat. If, like, say, you did it, Marmaduke fan. If you said, hey, man, I'm doing this book right here, the idea of direct sales to like, hey, man, just like, here, reach me at this email. Okay, PayPal me this. Give me your address. Here's a PayPal. Here's my address. It'll be in the mail tomorrow. That right there, that's great. That's what this community can do. But the idea of, but that's why I kind of rant long enough.
So this gets at what we talked about, what Larry King and I talked about, I think, in our first appearance together, is we talked about, Twitter drama, and I think we kind of quickly moved on from Gary Conway to talking about this idea of lots of people being able to create work, of there being really a low threshold to you creating a comic, as long as you have the gumption to create that comic. And King's focused on kind of like the do-it-yourself vibe to it, which I really like. I'm interested in seeing maybe like Indiegogo and other, independent, funding platforms being an opportunity for people to fund independent work. And I see YouTube and Twitter as kind of the way of you letting other people know about great comics that are being done by people who are just passionate about comics. So this is something we kind of talked about the first time. So what I'd really be interested is to hear maybe DMI's perspective. So as you've kind of framed it, DMI, you don't like the salty nuttiness on Twitter. You just want a good business. You want your business to succeed. You want people buying comics. You're fine if SJWs want to come in and buy comics. That's great. But it's when it becomes this sort of toxic climate that it gets tougher.
Oh, it's already a toxic climate. Yeah. That's the problem. It's like, it's not just at Marvel. It's Image can't even reach Eric Stevenson. Probably if you email him, but God knows he probably has that like skimmed out. CB Cebulski, you can't reach him because he only sees people that he follows. You'd have to reach somebody that knows somebody to get to him. But even then, like good luck with that. Grevort just laughs at people. And the fact is, like, I ain't saying give up on shops, but like back in the day, like you'd have head shops, you'd have record stores that would sell comics. Like a lot of the Art Crumb, the underground comics. You buy some pot, you buy a bong, you buy a comic. And the idea, it's like, I mean, I don't smoke pot, but whatever. That's if I get my stuff into a head shop or some kind of weed store, like they want to buy my stuff, like cool colors, man. Here, take this. Like, you gave me $100, I'll take that. Pocket it.
So, what were you trying to ask?
My question for DMI is kind of, so like Larry King and I have talked about, this idea of lots more people should be making comics. We should try to have like a really healthy indie comics. As I've kind of gotten more and more sick of modern Marvel and DC, I'm more and more interested in seeing indie comics become a bigger part of the industry than they have been. And I think it's really important for people who love comics to kind of cross-promote each other and make other people aware of, hey, here's this really cool indie comic work. So what I kind of like to hear from DMI is what would he think would be like a really ideal comic book culture? Like if we could imagine we're fast forwarding 10 or 20 years down the road to like the perfect comic book world where there's lots of creative stuff going on. Like does DMI, do you have any thoughts as a comic book shop owner about what we could do to help promote good comics being made rather than just bash on bad comics being made?
Yeah, so like what I do, me personally, like obviously like I think more and more people are going to make comic books. I think self-publishing is going to be a lot of the things. But I think what I'm seeing is a lot of people are getting kind of this crowdfunding fatigue, kind of, because we've had a number of big crowdfunding things. I think actually Iron Sights just made its goal in 3 hours. I just looked on Twitter. But like, obviously they're making money, but I think those things are good. I think that they need to become a publisher and get them into stores too as well, because I think it's important to have the comic book stores for the health of the industry. But what I do is I have local guys bring their stuff to me, and I don't turn down anyone. I sell their comics on consignment. I basically take a small percentage. If they want to sell their comics in my store, that's fine. And I do it kind of on a consignment thing. If I have enough people like asking for their books, I would be able to, like, hey, I'm going to buy this many. I have this many pre-orders. I'll buy this right from you, But that's what I kind of do with the indie stuff and the really like obviously very, very low distribution on those comics. But I think a healthy industry would have something for everybody and not running a certain group out of the comic book industry. I don't care if you want to publish. I don't use the term SJW ever, really, but
I try not to.
If you want to have those type of comic books, I don't care as long as we have enough for everything. My problem is when the indie stuff is fine or whatever, and there could be some weird indie stuff out there. When it comes to the mainstream stuff, like with Marvel and DC, is when you have that trend is I see the same storyline in like 5 different books in the same, small amount of time, and it's the same voice and the same language, and it's the same everything with Marvel, and it's like you have no different voices at your company. So like I think everyone should be heard. I think we should have all kinds of creators, any type of creator, and I don't think we should be chasing any group out of comics unless they're actively trying to destroy comics.
That's interesting. So I get why you don't want to use the term SJW. Like there'll be a lot of pushback on anyone who uses the phrase. I kind of see it as slang for a particular group of people on the left. It's the group of people on the left who are, destructive and nasty. So I use it as a way of kind of saying, I'm not saying this is true of all people who are left of center. I'm trying to identify specifically the people who will destroy careers or creep online, that kind of stuff. So you want good business, and you want a big fat umbrella where anyone can get into the business, as long as they're not trying to destroy other people in the business. And I guess
don't destroy other people. Don't keep people out that want to do something. That's ridiculous to me.
I think that's a good consistent standard. As long as you can get the work done and make it exist, even if it's really weird or really creepy or really far out there, it can be published. Now, I guess the question would be, what if you start getting flack for carrying something? So one group says, well, we don't like that you carried this because we see it as dog whistling, racist politics or something. How do you navigate a situation like that, where you've got one group of customers who like one thing and another group who see that comic as racist or see that comic as homophobic?
I haven't really experienced that, because I am a small shop. I'm not Midtown or what, Big Bang or whatever the hell that guy's name was. But I'm not big. I'm just trying to have a healthy business and sell as many comics to as many people as possible, no matter what it is, no matter who publishes it and who wrote it, who drew it, or whatever, so I haven't gotten anything like that. I think it would be kind of interesting and probably aggravating if someone was trying to tell me how to run my business. I mean, the fact that I have my own business, I do have a business partner, so I co-own the shop, but it's just two people that run it. They don't pay my bills. They don't, put food at my table. So for them to tell me how to conduct my business I got into business so I didn't have to listen to somebody. I worked for somebody before, and obviously I can't do it. So I wanted to run my own business. So I don't think that they have a place, and I don't know what blowback I would get, or people would boycott my store because I would decide to be like, hey, I'm carrying, whatever, DNC's graphic novel that went through Diamond or whatever. If it had pre-orders and I have customers that want it, I want to sell it, and that's it. And the same thing with Mark Waid. If he had comic books that he was making and people wanted, I'm going to sell it. Dan Slott, Ethan Van Sciver, everybody. If customers want it, I want to have it, and I want to sell it.
I look at it as like Spock, needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. It's like, hey, these people over here want this. My opinion doesn't matter because they're paying customers. Okay, we got 4 or 5 people over here all pissy-eyed about it and gonna pee themselves out of anger. Screw them. Go to the people that are actually paying money, paying customers. It's like, I honestly think the whole crowdfunding thing, everything that's been going on lately, Richard Biz, and we got Mitch Brightweiser and Mitch Elizabeth and Art Pellegrini with the Red Rooster coming up,
and Jack Irons the Steel Cowboy.
Jack Irons, and we got what? God Almighty, we got like 4 or 5. I forgot.
Scout Marauder.
Timothy Truman with Scout Marauder, yeah, because he had just reached his goal, and say what you like, it's a damn shame nobody was talking about that. I didn't even know about it until DC brought it up. It was like, what the hell? It's like, he brought it up, and a few seconds later, I already pledged to it. But stuff like that, because it looked great. It's Tim Truman.
He's a good artist. He drew for
he's a damn good artist.
Yeah.
Yes, Hawk World and everything like that, and Jonah Hex, Two Gun Mojo, stuff like that. But you see all these projects coming out, and I didn't realize the fact that I know that they were talking, Mitch and Elizabeth, and they were talking about how the Red Rooster is going to be 48 pages, possibly with more, considering flex flex goals and everything like that. But $25 plus shipping and handling for a 40-page book, I think that's in the norm. I think that's going to be more likely because that's what Ethan got for Cyberfrog and everything. And I understand, you have to make profit and you have to do this and that, but dear God, I mean, it's like to get on individual store shelves. Like if a customer came in and bought that Spider-Man book they know for $10, $25 for that much, like that right there, because you got to think that's actually going to be more than that, because the store buys it, even with a discount, you're still looking at maybe $20 a copy.
It seems people are more willing to spend more on crowdfunded stuff.
They are, but that's direct market, like directly marketed to potential customers, like to shops. That's even bigger game.
If anything, directly marketed stuff should be cheaper, not more expensive. Someone's really getting rich off of this stuff.
There's the perception that you're funding it, and then there's the perception that you're getting maybe cool collectibles. So the smart person kind of designs it so that you give away collectibles that aren't that expensive for you to produce. But so for EVS, like getting 2 copies signed of Cyberfrog is kind of tempting, because I don't try to speculate that much. I'm kind of like, I speculated on America number 6 and 7 because those are like the 4chan issues. But there's enough of a speculator in you that you could say, well, if it's signed by the artist, that might, maybe I make $10 profit off it one day, or $20 profit off it one day.
Yeah, but don't you have to buy in at like $75? Or
you do, yeah.
That's just ridiculous. I know people love his work, and Uncle Ethan, that little thing. I know it's like a little haha joke. It's creepy though. Hey, it's your Uncle Ethan. Yeah,
it's like Uncle Scrooge.
Don't tell your dad.
I don't think it's creepy.
I consider it creepy. Creepy uncle outweigh. Hey, good Uncle Buck versus creepy uncle. Creepy uncle always wins. Hey, the uncle will teach you, whatever. Good jolly fella. This and that. No,
he does look like an uncle, though. I mean, not quite a grandpa, but uncle.
He's the uncle that's always drunk at the family get-together. It's like causing a problem. Like, oh, Jesus Christ.
He does always look like he's half asleep, kind of slouched down.
That's what I'm saying, drunk. It's like that kind of like you're not quite awake, you're not quite asleep. It's like, hey, how's it going?
He is a good artist, though. I'll give him that. He's done some
too detailed for my taste, but that's
too detailed. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like it's over-rendered. Yeah, I hate over-rendered art. It's like Barry Windsor Smith is perfect because the stuff's mainly in black and white and it works. There's like there's a weird fluidity to it. Ethan, it's like I gotta just put extra work in. I'm like,
yeah, well, that's why he's a good cover artist. You don't
when
have
he
him
did the Rainbow Brute, like
sure.
When he did Rainbow Brute, and it was very stripped down, and I got like, dude, if you drew a comic like that, I'd actually buy it. It's like, and color it yourself too. Cool, I'd buy that.
I think he does good covers and like
I disagree, but that's personal taste as always. But
sure.
But yeah, this like the idea of this culture war. It's like, what do you plan on getting out of it? It's like the idea of like I think people are going to get even more, Marmaduke, you're like kind of like the idea of going for, kind of like more right wing kind of comics, right wing friendly comics. I think that's going to have a backlash too. Eventually, you're going to have people like, hey, Timothy Lim I've had interactions with him. He's a cool dude. But when people, his comic is political. His comics are political. Sure. And I'm not talking about like they're right leaning, of course, and they're not going to hide that. This isn't like stealth. And the idea of fighting fire with fire. Well, we got all these left leaning, our SJW books out there to fight fire. We're going to put our right wing stuff out. Like, stupid.
I think it's more about having a market for everyone. It's like what DMI was saying. There should be books for everyone, and he'll sell them to anyone too.
Oh yeah, like that right there. Like if you want to have it should be like how Japan does it, where you have like a literal market for everyone. Well, sales aren't that great there, but they do a lot better than a lot of American books. But it is a different market. I understand there's certain factors, and the phone companies, native, comic readers on their phones, and this, that, and that kind of stuff, whatever. But I honestly think just making your first goal for your comic. Forget the culture war. Make it entertaining. Right. Anything else is secondary.
Yeah, if it has politics, that should be a secondary thing, unless it's the selling point. Like POTUS Thump's book. I mean, it's got Trump on the cover. You know what you're getting into.
Well,
it's
rabbit,
not like you're
Trump,
buying. Yeah, it's not like you buy Spider-Man and then it gets all political. It's like, dude.
Well, they did have the Obama cover. It's like one thing I want to do now is go back and like Obama. There's Obama cover for Spider-Man and the same thing for Youngblood, and even I think for Savage Dragon. The only thing I can think of is like a friend of mine, Josh Finney. He put this thing out. It was the Faith Hillary Clinton thing. It's like, and Faith is telling Hillary Clinton about. Don't worry, I found this email, like the footage of Seth Rich getting killed. I knew it was fake, and then like shows Faith being like shot dead, like the panel below it. It's like Hillary's like, okay, you're the only one that saw this, but the like, when you start getting in this, you know, putting your character, you know, like kind of aging yourself as well, you know, putting like real world stuff in there. That's honestly, I hated the 9/11 issue of Amazing Spider-Man. You know, the black cover. That right there, the fact that it just, to me, it trivialized the deaths of real people. With like, people looked at it as a tribute. I looked at it as trivialization, like a world in which New York has been flooded by Namor, been destroyed by Magneto how many times, had demons crawling all over it multiple times. Galactus plopped down, started trying to eat the planet. I mean, all this horrible stuff happens, and if you want to like be realistic in that world, this is going to sound horrible. Screw it. 9/11 in the world of Marvel, like nothing compared to what all the horrors that's happened previously, and the fact that they made that a topic and an issue, and it's like the fact that it could have been like an end of an issue, like a splash page, like in a memoriam, that kind of thing. That'd be fine, but making a whole issue of it and showing like Doctor Doom crying. At Ground Zero, that right there, to me, I read that and it made me want to slap everybody involved.
When I was a little kid, the 9/11 issue kind of moved me because it was a character I identified with, grappling with something that hit me as a young person from the news. But as I grew older and kind of maybe more, I guess, aware of how storytelling works, I got more and more annoyed by it because it does strike me as. Yeah, Doctor Doom crying is the bit that always struck me. Like, he's probably guilty of atrocities with a similar kill count to 9/11. So it becomes it's the worst sort of here's a tragedy. Let's make a comment about it. Like the reason everyone will talk Mouse by Art Spiegelman is it doesn't have the feel that he like took a Holocaust story and made $1 million off it. It's actually a story about him kind of grappling with his father, and his father is very much affected by the Holocaust. So there's this personal aspect to the story that Art Spiegelman told that you can't tell with Spider-Man necessarily, that's what I think the indie scene is for a bit more of this experimental, personal drama kind of stuff where you can't really comfortably you can't really have Captain America showing up to, you can have Captain America fighting Nazis, but you can't have Captain America showing up to death camps without it being a little weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like that kind of weird too. Since you brought that up, Captain America could fight Nazis, but Richard's always saying, why don't they have Captain America fighting ISIS? He's always doing this weird
CIA back, and there's some
that's
friendly rebels. Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like when you start, yes, you did have American companies provide, Germany with Zyklon B, and you had IBM with the computing. Basically, the reason the people, the Jews and Gypsies and everybody else that went and got tattooed before, if they didn't get exterminated right away, they're being tabulated with computers provided by like IBM and stuff like that. American companies profited. Prescott Bush's company profited as well. I mean, there's some really messed up stuff, but it wasn't the CIA, the American government's been like, here we go, politics, but we overthrew the duly elected prime minister of Iran because he was going to oust I forgot the name of the company then, but it was British Petroleum. It's just a different name.
It was BP.
It was called something different. But that right there, so we put the Shah, and so all these people like, oh, look what Iran used to be before Islam. Like, no, it was fine, but then you had to radicalize the people there because they lived under the Shah, who was kind of a prick. And so, women dress like whatever, like Western, because he was Western friendly. And then, of course, he gets sick and leaves, and then you have the student revolution, and everybody gets out of Iran. It's like, Yeah, and then we had to go and mess in Afghanistan. Afghanistan was actually turning socialist, and we had to interfere. And then after we interfered, so basically all the moderates were getting killed off. Then the Soviets invade, and they fight for many years, and we had to get involved again, giving military support and weapons as well. And then we had multiple movies like Rambo 3 and The Living Daylights, where like, look at the valiant freedom fighters, they're the Mujahideen, and then look how well that worked out, years later.
Yeah, so it's like Osama bin Laden was one of those guys, wasn't he?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
God's Contractor, I think that was the name of the article. It was an article, a glowing article about Osama bin Laden, how he ran a contracting company. He was a business owner, but he's fighting the Russians, Afghanistan, and giving them what for. And it was a glowing article because at one time he was our ally. That's Saddam Hussein. Like, hey, we want to fight the Iranians. Here, get some weapons. These people. Yeah. So when Richard was like, "Let's fight ISIS," that is the stupidest shit, and it's just so stupid. It's like, okay, you want to bring that up? You want to touch upon that? It's like you can't do. You want to do that, but you have to show both sides.
Well,
and then so it kind of gets like.
It's going to be a comic book, and it's going to be glorified. And I mean, most people don't know about all the behind-the-scenes stuff. You could just have a hero fighting terrorists and call it good. They did
that with the John Nee Raber and John Cassidy run right after September 11th, where he was basically fighting equivalent of Al Qaeda. Oh, yeah. And then what did it turn out? That they were they had shield tech. That there was some hey, they were back, like they got U.S. government tech, and this there was some kind of conspiracy kind of stuff. And there was like some kind of CIA whatever deal. Like it's alluding to the fact it wasn't, rah America, like punch a Nazi, buy war bonds, slap a jab, It's this stupid. It worked in the golden age because it was propaganda. You want to do propaganda now, it doesn't quite work.
It's not so black and white as it was in the 40s, I guess.
No, of course not.
There are forms of propaganda though that speak to everyone. So that if you have like a villain in like a foreign country throwing a gay person off a roof, that's like the one kind of villain where everyone left, right, and center, they're rooting for the hero to come in and punch that guy. So you kind of got into like all of these like, you brought foreign policy into this live stream, but I don't necessarily.
I have no problem.
I wouldn't necessarily like change how I vote on foreign policy or think about foreign policy based on like a superhero comic that involves either a real life terrorist group or some fictionalized, they'll call them like Adamantium Stan or something, and it's just supposed to be that slightly fictionalized. But pretty much, I think I miss seeing superhero comic stories where they are kind of beating up on the universally hated forces of evil in the world. Like fighting commies and fighting Nazis used to be a fun aspect of comics, even if there was that propaganda aspect. Today, the comic I would like to see is, like Antifa hitting people with lead pipes, and then a superhero swooping in and punching the guy with the lead pipe. But that kind of need, the fun of seeing a superhero punch some insufferable, bad person who looks like someone from real life. That's not being that when they make Punch a Nazi, they're like a cutesy thing. So it's not like they're fighting Nazis because Nazis are cool comic book villains. They're having superheroes fight Nazis because they're using it as a veiled metaphor for Trump supporters. So the one I was reading was Silver Sable, and Silver Sable's an assassin, so it would make sense for her to kill someone. But there's like this little old Nazi lady who's like 90 and attached to a machine, and they have Silver Sable slit her throat and take glee while she's doing it. And even if Silver Sable's kind of like an anti-hero assassin character, and even if the little old lady is a Nazi, you still drew Silver Sable slitting a little old helpless lady's throat, right?
Yeah, that's horrible, like, just to hear about, like, there's so much stuff. It's like, why do they even make that,
I would like less selfies in my comic books.
Oh, dear. The covers.
Everything. Like, think about it. You ever read something old and you're like, whoa, that reference was really, really dated. I just think back to, like, what if, like, like my kids or my kids' kids, you know, like they pull out a long box and they see all these comics. They have these selfies, and it's like, damn, like, did you just do selfies all the time back in that era? Like,
Right.
So you talk about propaganda. I think that's like anti-propaganda for me. So like when I think about like, hey, I'll take a selfie, I'll be like, nah, man, they do that too many comic books.
Right.
Or Not Brand Eck, which had, what was it, Jay Foskett. Jay Foskett is this wonderful cartoonist, and she draws Forbush Man for Not Brand Eck. But on the front cover, they've got everybody dabbing, and dabbing became cheesy almost as soon as it became a meme. It was instantly the mullets of 2018. There's the presentation problem. The comic book cover is supposed to be like the sexy thing where you judge the book by its cover and you get it. And that's what kills me as from a design point of view, because I'm obsessed with composition and how little elements of the composition work together. But if you can't sell it based on the front image that everybody sees, the big, bright, colorful image, then you're sacrificing potentially a sale on potentially great interior art. Quality. We need quality in comics so that it appeals to normies more.
He's really touched on two things. The two things that get me is covers and villains. Like villains in comics, like the fact that now you have to like be sympathetic towards the villain. One of my favorite films, it's a Bond film, is License to Kill. It's got Robert Davi as the bad guy, Sanchez, and he takes Felix Leiter, kills Felix Leiter's wife, who recently married, cuts her heart out. All right. He takes Felix Leiter to a place there's a great white shark, ties him up, and Felix Leiter's like, you kill me, but Bond will get you. And Sanchez goes, I'm not going to kill you. This is the first day of the rest of your life, and slowly lowers him into the great white shark pit where he loses an arm and a leg, so he's maimed for life. He's still alive. And then, so Felix Leiter's all messed up, though he's hitting on the nurse, even though his wife's dead. Maybe he's in shock. I don't know. And then James Bond goes on this rampage, and we need your badge and your gun, Bond. And he's like, nope, that gonna happen. Popping wheelies with semi trucks and bursting, setting people on fire. Love it. We need more villains like that, like unsympathetic, great foil for heroes. Black Panther has Claw, and that's it, and Killmonger. That's he one movie. He's already blown through all his villains.
They really overdo it though with trying to make this, sympathy for the devil. Like, just the villain's the bad guy. You don't have to like him.
Sometimes it's just really bad people.
That's really the trend though. Yeah. There's barely any real villains too. It's like everyone's an anti-hero. Even Bane Conquest, I liked that series, but Bane was more of a hero than a villain in that.
Well, yeah, he was wrongly accused. He was doing being punished for sins of the father. He was born in a prison, raised in a prison. So it's like this sympathetic villain. Even Doctor Doom, he's doing it for his people. Even though he's a dictator, he's taking care of his people. Look at Sinestro, same thing. Yeah. But when it comes to the covers, that's another thing that gets me. That recently produced that Alex Ross cover for whatever that new Spider-Man event. God knows how many events they need to do, but it tells me nothing of the story. It just says, "Oh, there's a bunch of characters in there."
Spider-Verse.
Yes, something like that. I could care less. All I remember is that horrible, that PS4 Spider-Man costume with the white spider. That's the ugliest costume out there. Give me the silver metal armored Spider-Man any day. Give me Bagman.
I think the one with the hoodie is worse.
Spider-Geddon is the event. Spider-Geddon.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you bring up a good point with comic books in their covers and not having anything to do with the story. So I was going through all these back issues and stuff, and most of the comics have something on the cover that has something to do with the story, or really kind of tells a mini story of what you're going to get. And a lot of times now we just get if it's a team book, they're just standing there. They're like, here's the team just standing there. There's no villain on the cover. There's no struggle on the cover. There's no kind of like a dynamic thing. Even if you wanted to do just a cool concept of one character on the cover going through something, there's not a lot of creativity on that. And as a kid, covers really sold me on a book. Like, I had my certain characters that I liked and I would read, but if there was a cool cover, I would check it out. So, yeah, I think that might be a bigger problem in the industry as well. I think there's the covers, maybe because the scripts aren't done before the solicitations come out, because we're putting solicitations out 3 months in advance before the comic comes out on sale. I guess you'd have some sort of concept of what the story would be, but I don't know. A lot of times when you look up, I don't know if you guys get the previews book or magazine or whatever, you look them up online, you go through the list and you just see, especially the superheroes, like more Marvel probably than DC, because DC seems to have, like with Flash and Hal Jordan, really like what's going on in the story. But Marvel, a lot of the times it's, here's just the character standing there. Spider-Man books. I like that.
Like even some of those covers, like I was looking at some of the X-Men covers as of late. Like, it tells you nothing what goes on. I remember, like even the crap tier between New X-Men and like Operation Zero Tolerance. At least they'd show certain, like, at least stuff would happen. Like I remember the cover. I don't know if you remember this one. It was part of the 12. That really, oh God, Alan Davis, why? But it was the one where it's like Cyclops is exploding on the cover. Like his yellow chest belt is like, and it's like he's like, because his energy is like whatever, ate too much. He's like exploding.
He was merging with Apocalypse or something in one of those.
Yeah, it was like that right there. I remember that. It was a horrible comic, but I remember the cover because it was interesting.
Sure.
And there was some kind of, I don't know if it was, I think what happened is the editors back in the day used to be like former artists. Like maybe they couldn't keep up with the pace and like just kind of like they had like hey, do something like this. Like, like there was more artistic integrity in the editorial department. Now it's just people looking for, I want to move on to BuzzFeed or some other website or something along those lines. Like Marvel Comics is a way to pad my resume to get something else. And I think that's across the board. So now, and also these artists, I hate the fact, and they're going to hate again, I hate the fact that interior artists don't do the covers to the book. I don't like, there's Alex Ross cover, and then here's, Ramon Villalobos interiors or something like that. I like the cover to be done by the interior artist.
It's a betrayal. If I want to read a Guri Hero comic and I get the Guri Hero comic cover, I feel betrayed when I open it up and it's not Guri Hero on the inside. Because there are artists who will sell books to me. Even if I hate the story, I will just look at their pretty pictures because I admire their technique.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what's supposed to be what variant covers used to be. It's like you have the regular artist, he would do the interior, he'd do the cover, and your variant cover would be a superstar artist. So you would have your Michael Turner or your Alex Ross or whatever back in the day. And that was probably the early 2000s, and not everything got a variant cover. Literally, like, everything gets some sort of variant cover. Like, there's titles that you would never imagine would get variant covers. And then they would have variant covers that don't make any sense. Like, we're going to do Black Panther month, so he's going to be on the cover of America Chavez. Why? But
I saw that.
You're actually, like, that right there, Marvel doing that, and like, here's an X-Men cover for a Daredevil book. It's like, because it's like, why would, who buys this? Like, there's some dummy out there that buys this. But my biggest thing, and this right here, I could go on a mini rant for this, but I'm trying not to because I don't want to do whatever. But Dynamite and their horrible, horrible photo negative variant, this variant, that cosplay variant.
That one really hurts. Dynamite, I love a lot of the properties they have. They have some cool characters, but they just won't pay for the good artists on the interiors, Like, they've got the Shadow. I love the Shadow. And they've got Vampirella and, like, all of the Edgar Rice Burroughs characters, right? Like Tarzan and
Flash Gordon. I think, Flash Gordon.
All that stuff. Like, all the old cool characters that aren't really owned by one of the big two, they picked up a lot of them. Even, like, Green Hornet and stuff. But, I really gave Dynamite a chance. They were going to be my go-to after DC, and I don't know, it's just disappointing. It's like they spent all this money to have these cool properties, but then they don't hire the artists. And what blows me away is what you're saying, too, about the variants. Vampirella, 2016, the first issue had like 10 variant covers, but the art was trash. It's like, just have one cover, take all that money, pay an artist to draw the inside, you know? Like, it's kind of a small group, but there are people that will buy just anything with that character, you know? That it has a good little fan base, but it would
I don't understand, like, because, like, the company, like, a lot of times when I get my Valiant books, Valiant always has at least 2 covers, but they might have 4 and then, like, an incentive cover, too. I'm like, you pay those artists, like, for the rate of the cover. Are you really making that much more money because you have that many completists out there that want to buy 4 covers of your book? Because I'm looking at their numbers and their sales, and I'm not very impressed with what they're doing and how many products they move. And so I don't understand. It's like, are you really making that much more money? You do have to pay another artist to do another cover. So if you have 4 ones, but then I guess, then again, they do like the 1 in 25 or the 1 in 50, and they just use black and white and a virgin cover or something that they do, and they use the art over and over again, just different styles in different ways. But
the worst
yeah,
is the cosplay covers. Vampirello's really bad for that. Well, they'll have some chick with tattoos and stuff, all
full leg tattooed.
Yeah,
like that's not Vampirella. That's some woman. It's like
the Sheena book that came out. They had cosplay covers for Sheena, and it was the same girl, and it looked like the exact same photo shoot. So it was like you just took a bunch of pictures of this one girl in the same outfit and like one shoot, and you just totally used the heck out of this thing. And
that's
it's kind of weird.
It is weird.
That right there actually reminds me of during the JSA run, the John's Dale Eaglesham JSA, you know, the one when they brought in the Kingdom Come.
The Alex Ross covers.
The Alex Ross covers. Alex Ross covers was the main cover. The variants were Dale Eaglesham, and the variant covers actually kind of told what was going on in the interior. There's actually something going on, not just a pose of a character. And I was like, that should be the main cover. The Alex Ross should be the variant, because I don't want to buy the Alex Ross cover. I'd rather have this Dale Eaglesham cover. I'd rather see the interior artist on the cover.
I think you're the only one in the world who felt that way, though.
That's the thing. It's like, if Alex, like, I look at it this way. I'm kind of a diehard when it comes to certain things. One of those things being, if you're not doing the interiors, get off my cover. Well, J. Scott Campbell did this, then get off my cover. Well, the only thing he does is covers now. Then leave. Go do commissions. I don't care. Oh, Archim, he does all these great Supergirl covers. He's doing the interiors? No. Then get off my covers. That's the way I look at it.
This is why I say you don't like anything. You know?
You're right in some regards. What I love passionately.
But I have those Alex Ross GSA books, so that's why I'm all defensive.
I do not blame J. Scott Campbell for doing what he's doing, because he's going to get paid more for doing that, and I'm all for that. Like, and he's got his own marketplace. A lot of times, I think he just sells them through his website. I don't even know if he's hooked up with.
Depressing though.
But listen, like he's producing a product that people want, and his art sells, and I say go for it. I don't care for all the tons of variant covers, but if he's doing it through himself, buying it exclusively and doing it through his website, I say go for it and do it. And I think that's great. If that's how he makes a living, that's great, because interior art is not going to pay him to make a living anymore. So he can't just go on to a monthly book for Marvel or DC. And let's face it, the grind of a monthly book is probably really, really bad. You're drawing a lot, and so he's going to make more. He's going to knock out a couple covers and do it, and I think that's fine for him. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, but yeah, I think it's fine for him to do that.
My thing is, I don't want him monthly though. I'd rather him do like either event or like kind of his original graphic novel kind of things. Make it special. These artists that can't do monthly books, like, you know, your Joe Mads, I'd rather him finish Battle Chasers than actually go do something else. Like, he's Battle Chasers, like, what, 20 years on, and he still haven't finished it. But
most of the top tier artists don't really do interior art anymore. Or if they do, it takes them all a long time, like Gary Frank.
See, and that right there, that Gary Frank was a mistake. We should have got anybody else. Honestly, like
He needs to be on
Clayman.
he needs to be on a Superman book again. Gary Frank.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. It's a 12-issue series. Take
Make
18 months
it
to
a
do
one. Make it a one shot. Give him a year to draw it. I'll buy it.
And just make it an annual. Get Gary Frank on an annual.
Yeah, there you go.
Brad Meltzer writing, Gary Frank interior art, Gary Frank cover, maybe Alex Ross variant. Yeah, there you go. I'll give you that.
I don't know if Meltzer could handle just writing one character. He'd probably have like 5 super teams show
He
up.
did good on that Action Comics number 1000.
That's true.
I came back. I didn't like it at first. I reread it. Still hated the Bendis one. I felt so sick the fact that Jurgens is gone. Like that right there. I love that. It was tugging at the heartstrings. Like, damn it, this era's done. For now, it's gone. Now we're stuck with Bendis.
I love that
slug.
Overall, Action Comics 1000. Yeah, Bendis' story was the only one I didn't like. The rest were great.
Didn't you know he just got his pants back? He's got the red tights. What's with red tights? Because red tights is a big deal.
Oh,
yeah, there's scary 90s man with his mange. Looks like a mangy Ahab.
A giant
from
monster rampaging, and they just kicked the crap out of Superman. We better talk about his red trunks. Yeah. That's important, right?
The fact that your business is destroyed.
Yeah, 2 like 90-pound waitresses just drag Superman. No problem.
DC, you mentioned how you were kind of looking at Dynamite Comics as maybe a potential alternative to reading as much DC work, and then not being happy with the overall feel of everything. Like I got that vibe just kind of noticing that Dynamite would like advertise, Kinky Betty Page comics and like their little kid comics. I get the feeling that Dynamite's kind of like throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. So I've kind of moved past the point where I want to be loyal to a single company, and I just want to get what's really good. I want to get just the cream that rises to the top out of several companies. So maybe something interesting would be since I kind of see like the role of the comic book shop owner as like being professional, making it easy for you to find what you're looking for, but also maybe helping the newbie get their toes into things. And a lot depends on like the taste of the individual. Like, do they like action? Do they like romance? But in general, what would be the cream of the crop from a few different companies over the past year or two? I mean, if we went back decades, we can talk about like all the greats over the course of decades, but maybe just in the past, recent few months, past year, what has been the cream that's risen to the top?
I always say, like, I follow creators other than I don't follow characters. I follow creators a lot. Creators that, their work I like. So, like, anything Ed Brubaker, like, I always like crime stories. So, somebody's like, hey, I want a crime story. It's like anything Ed Brubaker does. Criminal, The Killer Be Killed was a really great book by him. A couple other things like that. Josh Williamson, my Flash sells very well. Birthright by Josh Williamson and Image, that sells really well. When Nailbiter was out, that was really well by Josh Williamson as well. He has a couple hardcovers of that now out, so that's serial killer stuff, really cool. I like crime. Birthright's more fantasy. You guys probably have heard of it. It's really good. So like anything he does. Robert Venditti, one of my favorite writers right now. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. Hawkman was a great first issue. Anything that he writes, I really dig. And I like artists. I follow artists, but I really do follow the writers because I really like a good story. Donny Cates. Anything that Donny Cates writes has been gold. Thanos I couldn't keep in the store. Even people are liking Baby Teeth and Redneck and anything that guy writes. So
Venditti was on Damage, right?
Yeah, Venditti's on Damage too. Yeah, okay. So and I get that too. So yeah, those are like those. I really follow kind of some of those writers and those guys, and those sell really well. Obviously, Batman sells well, whether you like the story or not. Batman sells well. Detective sells well. Those have been good, but for quality writing, like Ed Brubaker, Venditti, Donny Cates, those guys.
Probably Mr. Miracle always sells out.
Mr. Miracle was a weird one. So like what was coming out that week? It was Mr. Miracle, and then there was something else going on, like Marvel Generations or something was happening. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, they overlap.
So, like, I'm getting calls Tuesday. So I get my shipment in on Tuesday, and obviously I have to sell them on Wednesday. get my shipment in, and I'm getting calls, and I'm thinking maybe I'm getting calls for Marvel Generations. I got like 4 or 5 phone calls for Mr. Miracle. Like, oh, I just read an article about Mr. Miracle. Yep. Or, oh, I saw this online. It's out tomorrow. Can you put this in my bag? Can you put this in my bag? Can you put this in the bag? I'm like, it's Mr. Miracle. You know I didn't order a ton. I'll see what I could do. I got A covers and B covers, but nobody put these on the pull bag. So it was a weird thing that I sold out of that. And I over-ordered Marvel Generations, whatever one-shot that was, as a $5 book. And I still have copies of Marvel Generations. I do not have any copies of like the first 5 issues of Mr. Miracle, maybe like second and third printings.
I feel like the Hawkeye Generations came out around then. Was that the first?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, maybe. It was like Hawkeye. I want to say Hulk or Thor or something, maybe? Hulk. I don't know.
I think Hulk was the first or second one, right?
I think Totally Awesome Hulk was the first one. Or something like that. I feel like it was the same week maybe as that.
Boy, Mr. Miracle really, it had so much buzz online. But yeah, like my comic book shop, when I went in there, I asked about it, and he was like, no, I had no idea it would be so huge. And yeah, he sold out on his 4th printings even. You know, he just kept ordering it and kept selling it. I mean,
yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, I could only get first prints on 5 and up from him.
If I'm selling like 30 copies of Mr. Miracle, it's insane because I never would. And like I said, I'm a small shop, so like I was upping orders. I was getting 25 copies of the A covers and 25 copies of the B covers, and I'm still selling out.
Yeah, and until recently, I mean, Mr. Miracle wasn't like a hero people talked about.
No.
You know, it wasn't like totally obscure, but you definitely had to be a comic fan to have probably heard of him, and he was the biggest thing. So what issue are they up to now?
8.
No, it's got to be past 8. Just 8?
8's the last one I read. Has 9 come out already?
I saw the cover for 9.
I think there was a delay, so that was the problem.
Oh, okay.
I have a bit of an interesting story for my hunt for Mr. Miracle, because I think I went to maybe 3 comic book shops, and no one had it. And the last one I went to, it was, I think it's Capital City Comics. And that is a completely dope like comic book store that's been open since 1960, and they'll have like photos of every great old comic book artist on the wall who's been there, and it's a completely disorganized giant stacks of old comics everywhere. And the owner of that shop said, yeah, I ordered a bunch of it because all the other store owners just thought, well, this is just a Jack Kirby character no one cares about, but he knew the artist and the writer, and he kind of just anticipated that the writer-artist combo would make it a hit. So maybe there's one of the reasons I want to read, superhero comics again is I want to get a good feel for, who's who in the comic book world. Because for that store owner, his just reading tons and tons of comics over decades of time kind of gave him a feel that, oh yeah, this one's gonna sell well. And I'd kind of like to have that just sort of to get a feel for, who these rising great artists are going to be. I kind of want to, there's an exciting factor to seeing an artist reach the top of their game and gradually gain more and more acclaim over time for me.
What do you think about the story itself? I mean, it's pretty dark, especially for a Fourth World story, and like so many characters dying. Do you think that's going to be just the rebirth continuity, or this is kind of its own little story? Because I mean, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but they've killed off some like pretty important characters.
I would probably want to keep it its own little thing kind of story. I think it may depend on whether they stick the landing or not. I mean, okay. I probably share a lot of people's opinion that I was completely absorbed in the first few issues, and I'm kind of like tapping my foot. And there's also the case that, they're, what is it, Lightspeed? I didn't know much about the Fourth World before starting to read this. The one who murderated the bug in Light Ray, yeah. So that's like a hero character, right? So they're turning a hero character into pretty sinister, murderer for
Orion
war,
too,
right?
Orion too. I mean, aside from Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, everyone's been corrupted. Maybe even her. It's hard to tell.
Right. So what's the next generation of artists and writers going to do with those characters now if they're kind of like murderers and corrupt in this continuity?
My theory is that Darkseid's already got the anti-life equation, and that's why everyone's acting evil and corrupted. Especially, isn't it revealed that Orion is Darkseid? Or
I haven't caught up with it yet. So.
Oh, okay. I think that's the end of like the 6th issue. Right.
Be a while. I'll wait till I'm waiting till it gets collected.
It's crazy though. Some of the stuff that happens and characters that die, like he was saying, Forager being killed, and that was just kind of like a one-off part of the story.
Bug was killed, and Cosmic Odyssey. Now Forager's killed. It's like, good God, like the bugs can't catch a break, especially any fourth world related stuff. It's like, but that right there, the fact that it's doing well, I'm glad it's doing well, because that right there, especially a Kirby creation, like a pure Kirby creation, not this. Well, created by Stan and Jack. It's like, yeah, but Jack did a lot more work than Stan. But it's like Stan can come up say a couple words. Jack's over here building. It's like, hey, let's have a cathedral. It's like, yeah, that's it. But like Jack built a cathedral, got the stained glass. And it's like, but it wouldn't be there if it wasn't for me. It's like, that's why Funky Flashman. I love Funky Flashman, considering that's Jack's a couple jabs over at Stan. It's like, dude wears a hairpiece.
It's cool that they brought that back into the new Mr. Miracle too. Like Funky Flashman shows up, and he looks just like a younger Stan Lee too.
Yeah, that's what's so hilarious about it. It's like the fact that like most people don't realize that, and like you have there's some people that do, but not every. It's like you get it, you don't. That's fine. It doesn't.
It's an Easter egg, essentially.
Yeah. But it's like the idea is like people forget that Mr. Miracle was based off of Jim Steranko, being a escape artist and everything. And it's like these kind of characters I'm glad to see work. I'm glad to see these books. I didn't care for that Raven miniseries, or the start of it, that 12-issue maxi or whatever. I started reading it. It's like, I know it's Marv Wolfman. I know he created the character and everything. It just wasn't clicking for me. And that's unfortunate, but But if other people are enjoying it, great, but there's nothing to it for me. There wasn't there was no meat. There's no oh my God, I gotta keep reading this. But happens.
What series is that you're talking about?
The Raven, Daughter of the Dark.
Oh.
It's the 12 issue.
Yeah, I remember you was saying that, and I was hyped for it. I kind of looked at the first 2 issues, and I kind of see what you mean. It's a little bit teen drama, a little bit.
Yeah, if it was like if it was Wolfman was writing like it was New Teen Titans, like minus the big cast, but that kind of where it felt like even without the Perez art, it would feel like okay, it's moving along. A lot of stuff happens in an issue. There's like nothing that really happens in there. Oh, your friends are talking around a campfire. Oh, life is tough. Boo hoo hoo. And that's really the only thing that happens in that first issue. Is like I can't justify thinking like this is why I'm glad I dumped out of Doomsday Clock, because a lot of people are like, well, I'm already $20-$30 in. Well, just keep on buying.
That was the last stream. Me and Mega Gears are both in for $25, so we're just gonna keep buying it. It's like, oh man, they might as well get me for $60.
But they should have had this book done, like nearly done, before soliciting it, since it ain't really gonna. Clearly, if it's affecting the universe or it's tying in, it really hasn't shown, apparently. If that's the case, then you're going to be delayed months.
Well, there's all kinds of books that are on hold because of the Doomsday Clock delays.
So stupid. That's an editorial... again, another person should be fired for that.
Yeah.
Well, Johns is moving on to his little the movie, TV, whatever. Like, another streaming app. Yeah, like a DC streaming app, so I can watch Lois and Clark and the Superboy show as much as I want.
A little weird. Why didn't they just make it a WB app so you could get anything WB? Like, it's only DC stuff.
Yeah, that's what makes no sense. Like the fact that just tie it into you can apparently read essential comics on there too.
Oh yeah.
But I don't even know. Like, it's probably just like a sample. Like they used to put out those reader samples or whatever.
They should put everything Warner Brothers owns. Put like Bugs Bunny cartoons. Just put everything on there. Then they'd probably do okay.
Yeah, you could do that. Like a full-on deal, but just DC stuff. You're going to eventually hit a brick wall. Like, yes, I've seen the Super Friends for the 50th time. Challenge the Super Friends. I agree. I'm done. You get it for like a month and then cancel. try to get the free trial, give it a go, and then cancel. It's like that's about it.
I mean, I get the idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just wish they'd made it bigger. At least include the Looney Tunes stuff. Maybe.
Yeah, but everybody's playing catch up. It used to be, hey, you go to one place and get everything. Now it's 50 different apps, and here's $10 here, $15 there, $8 here, $9 there. It's like, oh, it's too much.
I think because TV is basically dead. It's a whole bunch of things popping up to try and take its place.
Yeah. Death to the King, whatever that kind of thing goes. The TV is dead. Long live TV. It's kind of thing. It's, hey, you paid $50 a month for your package, and now you're, I got to basically pay the same amount for your apps or whatever. But when it comes to the comics, I really wish that DC would get their act together, because it's getting pretty rough around there, and I feel bad for the shops. Can't get the shop every week. When I do, I just feel bad for them. I feel bad for all the shops. I got to put up with this mess, So boycotts don't help. There you go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was going to ask you guys: do you think there's ever an instance when boycotts would be justified, or there would be a good reason to do that? Maybe start with Marmaduke.
Yeah, let me think. I see boycotts as a tactic. It's a tactic of last resort, and I think the debates over boycotts happen when people who are sensitive to things are wanting to jump on the boycott wagon too soon. I would only see boycotts as I would only see a very specific kind of boycott as justifiable. So if I have a $50 budget for comics and I say I'm going to boycott, I don't know, if the DC Twitter account tweets out "F you, #1 Marmaduke fan," then I'm going to say, okay, I am boycotting DC Comics, but I'm going to spend my $50 on something else. So if I go to DMI's First Prince comic shop, I'm still going to spend my $50 at First Prince Comics, but it just won't be on DC books. I guess the thing I think about for boycotts is, there are formal boycotts that are sort of political. We get our list of the bad guys, and we say, this is our list of the bad guys. We're going to punish these bad guys. Everybody stick together on this. But what we don't talk about is like the hidden boycott list. And that's the comics you're just not going to buy because you're whatever on the creator now. I've talked about how, I'll be at the comic book shop, I'll have my wallet, and I'll think, do I really want to spend $4 on a Dan Slott comic when he's been such a jerk to me? And it's not even like I'm that salty over what he said to me. It's just, there's a comic book right next to Dan Slott's Spider-Man that looks good too. So that's where my $4 will go. So everybody, I think we all have a de facto boycott list in our heads, even if we don't do like what Yellow Flash did temporarily and like make a list out of it and formally ask other people to start boycotting so and so. So I want the comic book industry to succeed. And I don't know when this was said. I think that Larry King might have said something like about like having right-wing comics as a, fight fire with fire for left-wing comics, and you were making fun of that. I don't want just right-wing comics as fight fire with fire for left-wing comics. I want a happy culture where, everybody's making comics and you're cursed with too much good stuff around you. Like you pick up anything and it's good, and you're blessed with a variety of viewpoints. SJWs and right wingers and everyone going into the comic book shop. So really, the only time I would see a boycott as justified is when we are explicitly dealing with, I'd say, individuals who are making it impossible for other creators. So it's like the final punishment where you're trying to destroy someone's career, you are trying to shut down comic book shops, you're trying to make a war and divide comic book customers. When it gets to that point, then I think I'd be okay saying, this person, we need to judge them by the standard they espouse. So if they say all comic books, featuring busty women are patriarchy and they teach young children to rape, then I would be comfortable saying, okay, I am not going to buy that person's comic books. I'm going to buy the fantasy kind of comic books that I actually enjoy. So I don't think I'd ever reach the point where I'm ready to formally boycott, start like the #1 Marmaduke blacklist website and tell you guys who you're all supposed to boycott. But I think functionally it ends up being the equivalent of that. If I buy comic books I like and I don't buy comic books I don't like, or I don't buy from people who I think are espousing really nasty political views. And since I'm a big umbrella guy, I think maybe the most important thing that Larry King has touched on is that anyone can get into this market. And Indiegogo isn't viable for everyone. Eventually, the high cost of the books is you reach your peak of how many $50 books you can support. Yeah. So I think that it's going to be Indiegogo is going to be the cream of the crop. The Ethan Van Skyvers of the world and the Chuck Dixons of the world. They're going to be able to use Indiegogo to launch books apart from the big two. Anyone's going to be able to use the internet to share comics that like my personal plan is going to be, I'm going to publish my comic book for free online. And it's essentially going to be a long, giant free ad for Volume 2. So if people, read Volume 1 for free and they say, oh boy, I kind of like these characters.
I don't know.
Like action.
You might not want to do that. Isn't that what Jack Irons Cowboy did? He put his first book out for free and then he really regretted it.
I might talk to him about that, but
Tim Morris with Column, he did this. He did a Kickstarter. He got Jawbreaker, Richard and Jawbreakers. He was doing great until the first week. He was doing great. Things were looking good, and then Jawbreakers came out, and it dropped. Like all support because timelines were flooded. Jawbreaker support Richard, and Tim just got nothing, and it was depressing to watch. I felt so bad for Tim, and it's now the first volume's out on Comic Central but it's this he paid. It was done. He was just trying to get printing. That's it. It was done. Just get printing, but Jawbreakers came out and bye that. It's just.
I think if you're going to give away a book for free, don't anticipate that the hype it builds will be enough to fund a second book.
No, that's why I'm not going to.
People tend, once they get something for free, that's their mindset. He had a heck of a time getting the second book funded, and I saw, you'll want to talk to him yourself, but I saw him say multiple times he really wishes he hadn't given away the first issue for free, and that really set him back quite a bit.
Well, you may have talked me out of it live on air. I mean, my thought is that there's multiple tiers. Like there's the tier of printing it out for 25 cents and giving it away. And if you're just really passionate about telling your story, that's viable. And then there's the tier where you may want this to start being your career. You might want to quit the hamburger job and actually do art as your profession. So it's natural for people to want to have financial success for some of these things. And I just kind of see it. I see what's most important is instilling with people with the idea of love your work, love art, love storytelling. And the success may come, but the success won't come if you're not a passionate person about telling good stories with good art in the first place. And I think kind of like my response to any call for a boycott is far more important than punishing bad creator X is flooding the market with good content that we actually want to see. I think that's so I do worry about SJWs, and I do use the term SJWs. I kind of limit who I mean who I'm referring to when I use the term SJWs. But I see the solution to that problem not destroying SJWs. I see the solution creating excellent work, creating an excellent, vibrant artistic culture. And the internet is a good tool for enabling more of that. So I don't know, like Larry King, what was the name of the person who wasn't able to fund their work because of timing?
Tim Morris.
Tim Morris. Okay.
Column now available on Comic Central, first volume, free.
So what I'd like to see is like people like me, where I read comic books and I talk about the good parts of the story. It's good for me to have these connections with people online because then I am made aware of these things, and there could be great work that's just barely under the radar, that's just waiting for me to discover it. And what helps me discover it are the people on Twitter and YouTube chatting about it. That's what gets it in front of my eyeballs. So I kind of see the comic book YouTuber phenomenon as this is our chance to do something that comics book journalism should be doing, but doesn't seem to do that much, is reading a lot of comics, identifying good stuff, identifying maybe decent projects from young creators who are still earning their chops, still earning their spurs, but they're on their way up. They're hungry. They're enthusiastic, and just letting people know, hey, here's the best comic of the year. Here's the best comic by a rookie, where maybe there's some weak points, but boy, they got a lot of passion, and I want to see them start getting more of the audience they deserve. So I kind of see the YouTuber as the replacement for the old comic book review magazine, where you read reviews of 100 comic books by people who've read them, and then it helps you make your decision on what to buy based on whether people actually like what they read or not.
Yeah, because we're not getting that from like our websites. We're not getting any good. You're not getting the right reviews. You're not getting unbiased reviews from our comic book websites. We have no Wizard magazine anymore, right? So I think probably the YouTube guys are the ones that are reading all the books and telling you, what they're doing, what's good, what's not good. And obviously all the fans on Twitter and all the customers on Twitter will let you know, hey, I like this, I don't like this, or whatever. And they're completely honest because they have no any kind of agenda. They're not trying to get trying to get into the door of Marvel or a DC when they get reviewed. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like my content on my channel. I review DC stuff, but I don't gloss over when they screw up either. I'll give them praise when they deserve it, but it's not going to be blind praise.
Yeah, you're not a sycophant.
Yeah.
You're not right there. That's a good thing, because I call you out on that.
Right. Well, that's part of why I like having you around.
That's good, because I'm kind of a taskmaster in that way. Because my thing is, like, boycotts, at the end of the day, it's only going to hurt shops. This isn't where you can stand outside of corporate headquarters and say, change this now, fire that horrible man. He advocates murder, that whatever, that kind of stuff. Where I don't see, I look at boycotts as kind of like a firearm. Better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. And like to say never say never, but it's like, but understand that in doing so, you're hurting. Say like a writer says something, you're hurting the artist, the colorist, the letterer, you're hurting the shop owners, you're hurting, like I said, UPS drivers and store workers, factory workers. You're hurting. It's a weird system, very, very clunky, antiquated, but you're going to hurt a lot of people in doing so. So if you're going to do it, you better do it and mean it, and actually have a goal, not it's general boycott, but like have a goal in mind. You want you want this change or that person gone, or it's like, because some people, sometimes you need to call for somebody's quote unquote head, But a lot of people just they get blacklisted, they get blackballed, put on the back burner. 6 months, a year down the line, they come back out of hiding, and then eventually they're kind of like let back in. But I honestly think that this community, it can grow. More people can make comics, and as long as I said something earlier, and I'm not going to take it back, because like Edwin disagreed with me on this, but let's not let the gatekeepers, the people that fight the gatekeepers become the gatekeepers. I've seen, you can't stop certain stuff. Like, hey, what is your opinion on this? I need a verdict on this before I buy it. People are going to do that no matter what. But when that starts becoming the majority, yeah, that's going to become a problem. If you have to be blessed to, he is fine in my book. You can't let that happen, folks. It may not be happening. Maybe it's just looking at shadows, tilting at windmills.
What do you mean? What do you mean, though? Like gatekeepers?
Well,
becoming
I won't buy this book until somebody tells me it's good enough to buy. Richard hasn't said it's good, or this person hasn't said it's good. Ethan's got to tell me it's good before I buy it, and that's what I'm saying. Like those kind of people.
I see that sometimes. Like I'll like a book, and they'll be like, "Well, DNC said it's bad," and it's like, "Well, we have different opinions."
Like, yeah, so. He didn't like, was it DC 1000? Like, it was whatever.
Yeah, he didn't like Action Comics 1000. There's been a number of
1000. Action Comics 1000.
Yeah.
I'm thinking DC 1 million in my head because of the Superman with the multiple, the ovals on his chest, because of from Justice League. I guess that's been on my mind lately. DC 1 million, because I was Grant Morrison, and either way,
They showed it at the beginning of the new Justice League, right? Or was that
before they blew up the moon?
Yeah, they do show a little bit. Because I remember Our Man, and I was like, "What is the JSA back?" They're like, "No, it's DC 1 million." Yeah, and they blow up the moon because nothing matters. Just blow up the moon in the first issue.
So, Larry, you said something kind of interesting. You said that, our system is old and antiquated. It's like, for ordering and stuff, it is kind of old because we have Diamond, and that's it, that they're only distributor through to the comic book shop. So the only thing that I could do is order through Diamond Comics if you want a comic. Like, I guess I could go to some of these smaller publishers and get deals with them, right? And do it. But my discounts are going to be different because I'm taking like my Diamond money away and giving it to a smaller publisher, but they're not going to give me the same book at the same discount. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can't order $1,000 a month of just Zenoscope books. It's not going to sell. So I order my Zenoscope books through Diamond. So it's weird because we talk about gatekeepers and SJWs or whatever. And if they got in a position of influence in Diamond distributors, you could kill a book very fast.
Well, Diamond has killed books, though. They used to kill books back in the day for the longest. Like, they killed, they pulled, they're going back way a long time, like you're talking 25 plus years. But it was the birth issue of Miracle Man. They killed that because that was sensitive and controversial because it showed what childbirth looks like. And it was a warning on the cover. They had, like they could have, there were bags and boards back then too, had a lot more brass into them and stuff. But they killed it. But there was cold cut distribution. There was Heroes World, and there's some other stuff. Heroes World, that's the one Marvel bought and killed. And basically gave monopoly to Diamond because of that. But like the way I understand it, and like don't go like from the way I understand, it's like okay, basically. Like Marvel sells a book, Diamond buys a book from Marvel for $1, then Diamond sells that book to you for, $1.75, $1.50, or something like that, or whatever, along those lines. And so if you cut out the middleman, that is, the two choices are either Amazon becomes a distributor, so you can return stuff, and like basically all comic shops or most comic shops become kind of Amazon shops in a way, like physical locations for Amazon, or picking up books directly, like kind of how Alterna does, where you can buy directly from them and in bulk. But the fact that everything is so technologically inclined today, where now everybody, there's instant messaging, there are texts, there are phone, like you could get on Skype and talk to your, like, oh, here's a Marvel representative. Okay, your books will be arriving, your variants, this, that, whatever. I got to call the DC person, so thank you, I'll talk to you later, kind of thing. Boom, and you have that direct person from that company and being held responsible, not having to go through a Diamond representative and so on and so forth. I think they got DC Marvel reps as well, but
I do.
Wasn't that a case years ago though? Like to have
I have a Marvel rep that we can't get the email to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they
I
exist,
literally
but
can't talk to them. But I have.
Yeah, they exist, but they're very it's like they are at a certain level. But it's like CB Cebulski. He's on Twitter, but you'll just be able to read his tweets. He'll let you read his tweets. This kind of thing. But I honestly think the system there, like Amazon isn't perfect, but I think if Amazon were to get into that game and do like where shops can still order floppies, and also have the trades as well, and so you don't have, how many people have had their stuff stolen from, outside their house, like Amazon's left it and their stuff's been stolen. They're outside their apartments and this and that. It's like, just go to the shop, pick it up. There you go. Like, like where if Amazon delivers in the middle of nowhere, because that's where I am, middle of nowhere, if they deliver there to the post office, I'm pretty sure they deliver to comic shops, and give discounts and stuff. And especially if you're going from, considering the bulk and the availability. I mean, I'd rather see that happen because, like, Diamond, like, if more shops close, God forbid, because very few, I haven't seen too many open up, like any news about shops opening.
There's barely any shops left in the country. It's kind of absurd. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, you would think Diamond would actually do something, because that means less customers. It means.
Diamond needs some sort of competition. The monopoly just doesn't work. I mean, they say it works, but the thing is, the customer service you get from Diamond isn't very good. They miss books, they damage books, they mispackage books. It happens, and if it was like a thing that happened rarely, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it happens so often that it is a big deal. And then when you want to talk to somebody, it's just kind of a mess with it. I mean, they've been better, to be honest with you. Like, I've had weeks where I haven't really had too many problems. They always miss something. Like, they always, and it's fine if it's a book here or there that they don't ship me. But like when I'm missing, like they didn't ship me any copies of Century this week. I didn't get any, and they were like, oh, it was a wrong item invoice or blah blah blah. And they try to tell you some sort of lie or whatever, and it's just kind of annoying. But yeah, I think if we had some sort of competition for them, but I think it would be almost near impossible to do that at this point because they have exclusive contracts with like all the major publishers. So it's weird.
That is weird. That low level of customer service wouldn't be acceptable really in any other industry. I mean, imagine if, say, McDonald's was ordering their buns from somewhere and the buns always came and they were all smashed up. Like, that company distributing them would be out of business so fast. It's just strange they get away with it, but no one's really able to compete with them either, I guess. Is that why?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were deemed a legal monopoly because there was, there's not enough room for competition, or there's just so low of a profit there or something that it was like, here you go.
If I'm not mistaken, actually Marvel, I think it is either Marvel and DC or just Marvel, when the Department of Justice actually was looking into Diamond, they were like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's just let it roll. Because like if they close down Diamond, then that screws everything up. Because there's
they don't want to distribute their own books, that's for sure.
Exactly. Like, well, they're the reason we have a monopoly, because Marvel's like, oh, we buy Heroes World, we could distribute our own books and be in charge, and then oh crap, we failed. It's like there's a guy did like a kind of a documentary on YouTube. I can't remember. It's been a while, about a year or so since I watched it last. But it's like goes through like all the kind of the failings behind, like what the Marvel bankruptcy and everything, like leading up to it, and like kind of the resurrection. Like they were so bad. Like the Event Comics, which was Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti and everything, and like, hey, let's get them to like run this new imprint, Marvel Knights. And then we need somebody. Hey, you take over. And then we had some good things, and we had a lot of bad things. Writing for the trade, mandatory 6 issues for trade. Like there's like 3 issues of story stretched out to 6 issues of content. But it's that right there. Like that's how we and that kind of off the industry. Like, oh, no smoking in comics. Wolverine can't smoke no more because I don't like smoking. Says Joe Quesada. This kind of stuff. It's like we and then eventually led to the Alonso era. We got it started there, it ended up here, and look where we're at now. They don't learn from their mistakes. Hey, Iceman's back, great. You know what? You should boycott for that. Shops should just boycott for that. What are you trying to do? Kill us?
Yeah, that's just like another thing, another book where it's like, if I got pre-orders for it, I'll get it. I'll get it for pull bags. If I don't, I won't. If I get enough people with pull bags, then I'll actually have some for the floor. But it's not going to be like, hey, I had 3 people want this for pull bags, and I'm going to order 15 copies. I mean, there's just no way.
Do you sell a lot of the, kind of random, but do you sell a lot of those Star Wars comics? I noticed when I was at my local comic book shop, there was like 6 or more titles of Star Wars books.
I do. I just have guys that get Star Wars. They have pull bags, and it's just Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think at one point in time, Star Wars, if they like branched off and was just their own publisher, they would be like the number 3 comic book publisher just with the Star Wars books.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do sell a lot. The one that I don't sell a ton of is the Star Wars Adventures book, because it's published through IDW, and it's probably for younger audience. But yeah, the regular Star Wars books do very well. The only one that really doesn't do well is Poe.
I was going to say Poe Dameron. There was thick stacks of Poe. There was like one little sad copy of Darth Vader. and like the main comics were all picked over, but then Poe Dameron was like thick on the shelf, extra thick. But there was a ton of titles. There was like a Last Jedi book, and there was Poe and Dr.
Yeah,
Aphra.
right now there's their ongoings is like regular Star Wars, Vader, Poe, Dr. Aphra, and then they always have some sort of like rotating miniseries, and right now they have Lando, which is overlapping with Thrawn, which is overlapping with the Last Jedi adaptation. So they've been kind of expanding that, but I think Poe's going to go away, and we'll see where Aphra goes with this.
Yeah, Poe needs to go if it's not selling. Like, especially, I mean, I'm not surprised the way they kind of threw him under the bus in The Last Jedi. Like, who would want to read about him?
Right.
They punked him out.
They really did.
That's the thing about comics right now. My shop isn't a big shop. They're at a great location. They're a much better location than they were previously. Even though right now they got structural issues because this old building used to be old city jail that was renovated, put apartments above, and the comic shop down at the corner. And they're like even them. You see certain books like the Star Wars books, big stacks of that. Like they don't order heavy on certain books. Like they didn't even order any of those. That Bloodstrike, the reboot, the kind of like what they did with Prophet and Glory and the rest of the Liefeld books, and put somebody else on there. But there's certain books like you'll see they ordered heavily on and just didn't pay off, and that just happens like in these shops. And that right there, it's like I can't. I'm not going to buy this book because it's bad. I don't want to buy it. It looks awful. That doesn't interest me. But like the books I want to buy, like I wanted Top Cow. Like that, I know people like in the chat were talking about Brian Edward Hill, guys doing the detective comics.
Jeez, that was like an hour ago they were talking about him.
Oh God, it feels like forever. Maybe because I'm dehydrated. I don't know. But only brought one bottle of water with me. Finished a bottle back. But the idea of him like doing detective comics, and they're like, oh, he's a good dude on Twitter and everything. Only thing I can think of is like, dude, you and that Matt Hawkins dropped the ball on Cyberforce. You turned a kick-ass book about cybernetically enhanced soldiers and sexy chicks, and all this and that. You turned it into a talking head book about medical procedures. What are you doing?
Well, you see, the thing is, right now, Captain Cummings and DNC have been talking him up quite a bit. I think that's why you've seen so many people suddenly jump on the.
No, you're talking up,
like American Carnage.
Fake news.
Fake news.
I think he's cool on Twitter, so naturally, like it's kind of this weird thing that like we're shocked that a comic pro is like cool with you on Twitter. It happens like just casual, and you're like, hey man, I kind of like what he's saying, so it's like I'll go support his book, and I think that goes a long way because we've had a lot of bad experiences with so many creators. Even when you're complimenting them, they're like, what? So like I think that might be one of the reasons why you're seeing some stuff from him.
That makes sense because he's doing one of those new Vertigo books, right? American
it's
Carnage.
Like the only only one that looks interesting to me,
exactly.
To me personally.
Well, that's what everyone's been saying too. Like I watched Captain Cummings' video about the new Vertigo line, and he was just trashing it, and he's like, except for American Carnage, and DNC did the same thing. So I'm kind of like, what has this guy got? Like why is he the one that's okay? And is that why? Just because he's a better guy on Twitter?
He's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a cool guy.
I think it goes a long way.
That's cool. Yeah.
I can't forgive him for that Cyberforce, man. I really can't. I was because I'd been reading the older Cyberforce stuff, the one written by Mark Waid, the Cyberforce Hunter Killer books, and Velocity with the Kenneth Rockefeller art. And this stuff, I'm like, we can get back to this. And then like the covers, Silvestri cover, I'm like, okay, he's probably not doing interiors, but he did create the book. All right, I'll give it a shot because there's no other covers. That's the only cover they had, I think. And the interior, it's like 22 pages, $4, and nothing happens. And it's like I said, medical procedure consent, and it's like co-written by that Brian Edward Hill. I'm like, dude, how did you let this happen? It's like everybody's like, oh, he's great, and I'm like, just because he talks to you, not being a prick isn't good enough. You need to have a better, That's what I look at. It's like, well, he's a nice guy. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, no, Prove it with your writing skills. Mark Waid has proven his skills. He's a prick online and he's disappeared. He supposedly disappeared. He's probably out there somewhere. He's lurking. He's like, it's like a submarine movie. He's out there.
What gets me about Mark Waid isn't even what he says online. It's the stories about him like having actual tantrums in the workplace and breaking things and punching the walls and stuff. Like, dude, that's not cool. Like,
it's funny.
No, that's not funny. It
is. Punch drunk love. He's like, punching like there.
Like, no, that's when he has to go to counseling. That's not normal human behavior. Like, that's weird. You know, and he did that multiple times, like that whole thing at CrossGen, right?
Oh, that was hilarious. I blacked out. Like there's gonna be a Mark Waid story where I blacked out and I woke up and there was blood all over my hands.
Right? No, exactly. That's the next thing. We got to get Mark Waid on some meds.
I don't know. The problem is you go on those meds, and if you accidentally come off of them, that's when you get school shootings and true workplace violence. I mean, good God. It's like, what's worse, the disease or the cure? Supposedly cure. But I don't know. That's neither here nor there at this point. But it's been going on 3 hours, guys. I might have to bounce. I'll turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah, I suppose we could wrap it up pretty quick. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to cover, Marmaduke, or anything?
I'm pretty good. Hey, DMI, it was a pleasure to join you on a live stream.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you guys for having me. Really enjoyed talking to you guys, and we got to do it again sometime.
Yeah, same here. Marmaduke's great. David, you're great, man. It's like always, even if sometimes like you go, like, oh come on, why'd you bash that? That's great. Can we all just get along?
Well, it would be boring if we all agreed about everything.
Oh, of course. But as always, I'm right and you're wrong. But but this is fun. So thank you again, DC Fans United and DMI Second Prince, and which is weird. We're on the shop called First Prince, and you're called Second Prince. Number one Marmaduke fan is always great. So yeah, this has been fun, folks. So thanks in the chat. Thanks for stopping by. This is great. So
I got links for everybody's YouTube channels and Twitter stuff in the.
Oh hey, I'm gonna have Jack Irons on my channel tomorrow.
Really?
Okay, cool. What time? What time zone?
Did it. It shows how prepared I am. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
I will do a Twitter announcement. I'll do a Twitter announcement.
Hey, and the thing about it is, like, that's the thing. I'm not an expert at streaming, but I'm kind of picking up with some stuff that DC Fans United doing streaming. You know, do like the image, because like it's hard to ignore the image, but also have the link to the pre-made stream and have the date, the time zone. There's like somebody put it like, oh, I'm doing a stream and like it's 7. I'm like, 7 when? And this is not you, DC. It's somebody else. Like, actually put the time zone and the date.
It takes a bit of effort to make the promotional material, but it's really worth it.
I'm making you better.
I've got it. I'm going to have the creator of Jack Irons on 9 p.m. tomorrow. He is on the final stretch for his Kickstarter, and he's got a real dope artist for it. So,
is that Eastern time?
That is 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time.
Cool.
Nice. Very nice.
That's awesome. You're going to have him on. That's really cool.
Right. I really want my channel to kind of transform into anti-postmodern art central, but also like a place for independent comics creators to get a chance to talk about, you know, their writing process, their artistic process, and tell people about projects they're working on. So,
Indie Dave Comics in the chat says something. Marmaduke says you might want to wait till before or after Ethan's stream, so you actually get viewers. That's
great.
We bled viewers because I think Feisty streaming. I think somebody else is too. And
we were doing good. No one was streaming for a few first hours.
That's the problem. It's like everywhere else. Like, well, the argument is, oh, don't worry, that we're not. You know, those people over there, they're not the audience I'm looking for. They're potential audience. That's the problem. I want the people.
Everyone's the audience.
No competition. I don't crush the competition. Destroy them. See them driven before you. Hear the lamentations of their readers.
Okay, Conan. going in.
Okay, I'm bouncing out now, folks. Thank you again for everything. See you on the flip side.
Cool. We'll see you later. Hey, and Marmaduke, again, really congratulations on your channel. I like the direction you've taken it in, and I noticed it's grown a lot.
Yeah, I'm really happy. It's exciting to know that I can just talk about comic books and get good feedback from people. You know, it was an aspect of my life that I was really passionate about for a long time, and I think that just the opportunity to get to hear people talk about comic books on YouTube, sometimes that's even more exciting than seeing the finished result, because you get their insight on what goes into it and their thinking process behind it. So it really appeals to my inner art history geek to dig into comic books, especially with creators and writers.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, and I guess we'll go ahead and end the show here. Thank you guys for being on. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Thank you for having me.